Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Chief Rob Staley. I'm the Chief of Police here at the City of Temple Terrace. Thank you all for coming out today to honor our Canine Memorial. Today, we honor our four-legged friends who have served and have paid the ultimate sacrifice. Please join me in the presentation of the colors. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. It's my privilege now to introduce the Mayor of Temple Terrace, Mayor Andy Ross.
Thank you, Chief, and welcome. Good morning to everybody. I've seen, I have a lot of friends here from local agencies that I know very well, some people that I've known for many, many years, but I also see some visitors here. I saw some, forgive me if I missed you, but I saw some patches from Jacksonville, Brevard, and I'm sure some other places. And so if you have traveled to be with us this morning, I want to thank you very much. Particularly from the other side of the state. That's quite a haul, and so thank you for joining us, and welcome to our amazing city. If there's anything we can do to make you comfortable while you're here before you start your journey home, please make yourself at home in our building, and feel free to ask us if there's anything you need that we can do before you travel home. And so I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure that I'm the only mayor in the state of Florida who's a former canine handler. And I don't know if that's true in history, but it's true right now. I don't know. There's 411 of us, and I don't know the other 410. I don't know all of them, but I have never heard of anybody talking about, oh, yeah, so-and-so is a former canine handler also. So as far as I know, I'm claiming it. If anybody knows any different, right, please bring it to my attention. But I'm going to go out on a limb and claim it I'm the only one. And so it's very exciting that we have this memorial here in Temple Terrace. I was the mayor when this was established, and when the idea was floated to me, I'm like, oh, hell yeah, we're going to do that here. That's perfect. And so I do have 2 squares here for my former dogs, and it's been a long time. I know you guys are a lot younger than I am, and back when I was in canine, dogs were bigger and they had tusks, and right, it's a long time ago. So, but I do want to welcome you and thank you for coming here. I'm very proud to have this memorial here. And we are very proud of our amazing city, as I'm sure you are of yours. And so thank you again for joining us. And I will turn it back over to Chief Staley. Oh, no, I'm supposed to introduce somebody else. So I'm going to turn this over to the NAM Knights Vice President, Gary Olson. And I have to thank the NAM Knights for this, because without the NAM Knights, this memorial would not be here. They're the ones that approached the city and said, hey, we'd like to do this. Is there any interest? And as I said, we were very interested in doing this for a number of reasons, not just because I happen to be mayor, but it's a really cool monument. We're very proud to have everybody here to showcase our city. And so thank you, Gary, and thank you, organization, for doing this for us. Thank you, sir. Thank
you. All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Gary Olson. I'm the chapter vice president, and I have the honor to represent the NAM Knights of America Motorcycle Club, specifically the West Side chapter. I would like to pass our sincere gratitude to the City of Temple Terrace and Chief Staley for hosting this K-9 memorial. At events like these, we love to give everyone a little non-night background in history on how we started and what we're actually all about. In August 1989, a small group of law enforcement members who were also Vietnam vets wanted to rekindle the brotherhood they shared while serving in Southeast Asia. They also wanted to be able to help other veterans from all wars who were unable to physically or financially help themselves. The Nom Knights were established and founded by Jack Quigley, a retired Bergen County, New Jersey undersheriff. Currently, the Nom Knights have 81 chapters in the U.S. and Canada and are comprised of over 1,300 members that are made up of veterans of all eras as well as law enforcement personnel, plus a few special and dedicated patriots. The mission of the Nom Knights is to honor the memory of the American veterans, police officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty, to assist veterans and police officers in their time of need, and to promote community awareness through sponsorship and participation in the various community and fundraising events. The idea for the K-9 Memorial originated after the West Side chapter participated in various memorial rides across Hillsborough County in 2018. The initiative was a true labor of love, especially for then President Master Deputy Travis Wright, a K-9 handler with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, who took the lead and spearheaded the whole memorial project. During our journey to establish the K-9 Memorial, we explored the state and found several existing memorials, such as those at the Largo Police Department, Orange County Sheriff's Office, and Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. However, these memorials primarily honored their fallen canines. Our vision was to create a memorial that recognized all service canines fallen. Our vision was to create a memorial including those who lost their lives in the line of duty, as well as those who retired and passed away. As far as we knew, such a memorial was not present in the Bay Area. With the vision in mind, we approached the City of Temple Terrace, and they eagerly agreed to support our idea. The city provided the land. We focused on gathering the necessary resources to construct the memorial you see today. So far, we have raised over $45,000 for this project, and donations are always welcome and help us add the new bricks and maintain the memorial every year. We dedicated nearly 4 years to fundraising, designing, and building the memorial, which was officially unveiled on June 29th in 2022. The statue of the dog features a collar inscribed with the name Aramis. Aramis was a Temple Terrace police canine who passed away on June 17, 2021, after a long and dedicated career. His handler and Master Patrol Officer Rick Scalabro retired shortly after the memorial's dedication. We felt it was fitting for the memorial to bear Aramis's name, honoring his commitment to the city of Temple Terrace and the state of Florida, while also representing the service and sacrifice of all law enforcement canines. This memorial is a point of great pride for our chapter, as it allows us to honor our fallen heroes. And with that said, it is my honor to reintroduce Chief Staley.
This year, 13 canine bricks from 12 law enforcement agencies are added to the Nam Knights West Side Motorcycle Club for canines who have reached the end of watch. One of the 13 canines added were killed in the line of duty. Those canines killed in the line of duty have a star next to their name. We now have 108 law enforcement canines memorialized here from across the state. Today, we say their names so they are never forgotten. From the Flagler County Sheriff's Office, Canine Cairo, end of watch, 10/14/2025, killed in the line of duty. From the Brevard County Sheriff's Office, Canine Junie, end of watch, March 25th, 2025. From the Florida Department of Corrections, Canine Lily. End of watch, March 4th, 2025. From the Hendry County Sheriff's Office, K9 Nico. End of watch, January 8th, 2026. From the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, K9 Brooks. End of watch, March 17th, 2025. From the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, K9 Renegade. End of watch, October 26th, 2024. From the Northport Police Department, K9 Dutch. End of watch, March 4th, 2026. From the Plant City Police Department, K9 Jax. End of watch, November 9th, 2024. From the Plant City Police Department, K9 Lido. End of watch, December 9th, 2025. From the Polk County Sheriff's Office, K9 Chief. End of watch, February 27th, 2026. From the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office, K9 Bain. End of watch, June 17th, 2025. From the Tampa Police Department, K9 Sniper. End of watch, November 29th, 2025. From the University of South Florida Police Department, K9 Krieg. End of watch, March 25th, 2025.
Everybody. You guys are silent, so good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, May 19th meeting of the Temple Terrace City Council. It's so nice to see everybody here tonight. I'd like to remind you to please silence your cell phones, and if you would, please stand and join me in the invocation and the pledge. Lord, as we begin our meeting tonight, we thank you for the many blessings you bestow on our amazing city. We thank you for the safety and freedom that we too often take for granted, and for the public employees who provide the services we've grown accustomed to. As we discuss the important subject of water quality tonight, help us to remember our responsibilities as stewards of your creation and our duty to the common good. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. For those of you who don't visit us often, which is completely understandable, but we have a tradition here in Temple Terrace where we begin each meeting with a fun or interesting historical fact or something interesting about either the city or the region that we live in, or the state of Florida. We keep expanding wider and wider because we're kind of running out of material. So tonight we have our vice mayor, who I think everybody knows, James Chambers, but what you may not know is that this month marks 51 years of service to the city for Vice Mayor Chambers. Now, that's in varying capacities since the age of 2, right? And so, but now he is serving as vice mayor after wearing many, many hats throughout 5+ decades. And so, Vice Mayor Chambers.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Okay, this is a subject I touched on a little bit a while ago, but this is in more detail. It's about tennis, the history of tennis in Temple Terrace. So the very first tennis court that was ever brought into the city actually was not built by the city. It was built by a subdivision on our side of 56th Street, University Square Townhomes. They built that. I don't even know when that was built, but inside was a park, and on that park was a tennis court. At some point in the late 60s, the homeowners there asked the city to take control over that park, and it did, and that became a public tennis court in the late 60s. And that's about when the tennis boom in the country and the world started. Of course, Rod Laver, Billie Jean King, those pioneers of tennis really caused it to boom. And discussions at the city council level started about, do we need tennis courts in Temple Terrace? And I say at the city council level because that was before the date of the recreation department being created. So then in the late 60s, again, they were talking, and there's a lot of discussion in the minutes of those meetings. They settled on 4 tennis courts. What they didn't settle on was where those 4 tennis courts would be. There was a lot of discussion about 2 on the north end of the city and maybe 2 on the south end of the city. And there was actually an official vote by city council at that time to do that 2 north, 2 south. Over a period of time, almost a year later, the discussion came up again, and that vote was overturned by a vote of the same council. I believe it's the same council. But anyway, it was decided cost effective to have all 4 courts in one location. And it was picked where those courts are today, behind the Lightfoot Recreation Center on Whiteway in Richland. So that was a vote by council. Also about the same time, and I believe it was a project of the country club, I don't know for sure, I saw the plans years ago, to put 2 courts on Woodmont Park, where the parking lot is now, was supposed to have 2 tennis courts there. That never happened. I don't know if that was the southern area they were picking or a club project. So anyway, so now February of 1972, the city council at that time passed a resolution to build the 4 tennis courts at Richland and Whiteway. Then in 1974, the city went ahead and passed a resolution to build 2 courts at River Hills Park. So that's how the south courts got there. Those 2 tennis courts were built in 74. Tennis still booming, needed more courts. So in 1976, the city put out a RFP and authorized the 2 additional tennis courts at the Whiteway Richland facility to the 6 courts as it is today, and along with additional lighting and an office with 2 bathrooms, which is there now. That was in 1976. That tennis facility there in the mid to late 70s was one of the hottest tennis centers in the Tampa Bay area. It's really only one of 3, Brandon here and Davis Island. And we hosted a lot of different tennis tournaments and events. It was home to King High School matches, league play, which also had one of the best historic women's tennis league teams ever, with Councilmember Fernandez's mom being on that that team. Of course, open play. In 1999, the city had a demand for more courts, and clay tennis courts were really being talked about. So in 1999, there was a vacant lot next to the family complex
It's off of Gillette.
Thank you, Jill. Couldn't figure that road out. All right. So the city bought that land and built 6 clay courts, and they're there now. And again, that is one of the best clay tennis facilities in the Bay Area. So that's kind of the big timeline on Temple Terrace tennis. But I wanted to go back to the resolution of the City Council, Resolution 1672. And that was to authorize the construction of the 4 courts behind the Lightfoot Recreation Center. And this is for us City Council members, staff out there, city manager, staff. That resolution, and I want to recognize the City Council members at that time, Councilmember Gerard, Valenti, Bullard, Bondi, and Owen. Those names, some of them sound familiar. Mayor George Fee, and the Recreation Director, Ken Boyd at that time. And what I want to talk about was how sometimes our decisions here at council, staff's ideas, make a difference to people. So that was a very historic vote. Those courts were built. So I've got a picture for it, not yet, Brian, but I got a picture of what those 4 courts look like. It's only a corner. I couldn't find any old ones. If you've ever played down there, you would know about the office. So this picture doesn't have the office in it, but I'll show it to you, Brian. Okay, so behind that nice young man is there's no homes down Richland. There's no wall there. There's no tennis building. There's no anything. And if you don't know that young man, that's me. And this is the point I want to make. Someone made a decision in the city to build tennis courts. I've never played till it was built. I went down there, learned tennis. From that, I got a job working at those courts. That got my career started. Brian, second picture. This is the King High tennis team. 1974, first time King ever had a tennis team was because these courts were built. There were none at the high school. All right, take a guess. Where am I? I'm going to give you a second. Bottom middle. Okay, so that's me. So that was high school, and that's important. Brian, next picture, last picture. King girls tennis team. Bottom right. That's my wife of 46 years. I met her because of King tennis. So, guys, lady, our decisions make a difference. Made a difference in my life. So, that's my historic fact.
Very good.
Sorry about that, guys.
Well, I don't know who has it next, but that's going to be a tough one to beat. Yeah, the bar's set pretty high for you.
Yeah.
So, well, next up we have a proclamation for National Public Works Week, and I'd like to call our Public Works Director, Jason Warrenfelds, up to the podium. Jason, for everything you and your staff do for us, I don't think it can be contained in one proclamation, but we're going to give it a shot. And so, it says, whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Temple Terrace. These infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated effort of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures. It is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Temple Terrace to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest in understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their communities. Whereas the year 2026 marks the 66th Annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association, therefore I, Andrew Ross, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Temple Terrace, Florida, do hereby set aside May 17th to 23rd as National Public Works Week. And Mr. Warrenfeld, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Ross, City Council, for presenting this resolution in recognition of National Public Works Week. We sincerely appreciate the acknowledgement of to the dedicated professionals who work every day to maintain and improve the city's infrastructure and services. Public Works Week is an important opportunity to highlight the essential contributions of Public Works employees and the value they bring to the residents and the businesses alike. On behalf of our department team, thank you for your continued support and recognition of the Public Works Week.
Thank you, Mr. Warrenfeld.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Thank you.
To your employees out there, thank you. We have one more, and that is for National EMS Week. And you can see that we have half our fire department is here, and we have our Assistant Chief, Shane Salmon, to come up and receive the proclamation. Good evening, Chief.
Thank you.
Whereas this year's National EMS Week theme is EMS Week, Improving Outcomes Together. Emergency medical services are a vital public service. The members of the Temple Terrace Fire Department, both firefighters and EMS responders, provide life-saving care for those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Access to quality emergency medical care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. The emergency medical services system consists of first responders, medical directors, emergency nurses, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, educators, administrators, and others. The Temple Terrace Fire Department's EMT and paramedics engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. It is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Therefore, I, Andrew Ross, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Temple Terrace, Florida, do hereby proclaim May 17th through 23rd as Emergency Medical Services Week. Chief, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. I think you covered a lot of that. I would like to just at least recognize, kind of like you had pointed out, it's the guys in the back here who are providing these services to our citizens every single day. Our department runs about 5,000 medical calls, 5,000 calls a year. About 75% of those are medical calls. And so they do a tremendous job. They serve citizens well. Our slogan is exceeding expectations, and they do that every single day that they put on the uniform and come into our community and provide those services. So thank you to you guys for recognizing us, and thank you for our department. And then one last person to recognize is our medical director, Dr. Brooke Shepard, one of our own citizens within the community here. She's a strong leader for our emergency medical services program, and so without her, we wouldn't have the direction that we need. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, guys. Yep, come on up.
Can everyone inch over a little bit this way? So perfect. Okay, 3, 2, 1. All right, thank you.
Thanks again.
Okay, so next we have approval of the May 5th City Council meeting minutes. If everybody's had an opportunity to review the minutes, is there a motion to approve?
To approve.
Second.
Any corrections or adjustments to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. Minutes are adopted. Next, we have persons wishing to be heard on items not listed on the agenda or items on the consent agenda. So let me take a moment to explain to everybody how this meeting is going to go tonight, because it's a little out of the ordinary the way tonight is going. This section is for public comments on items not listed on the agenda. So if you're here and you wish to comment on the water report that we're going to get, this would not be the right time. There will be public comment. We have two presentations. One is on the water treatment proposal. We will have public comments after that presentation. The second one involves the financing, what the possible financing schemes could be, and there will be public comment after that presentation as well. So we have 3 times for the public to make public comment to the council today. It also should be noted that concerning the water quality presentation, that we have a town hall meeting next Tuesday at 6 o'clock at the Lightfoot Center. So the public will have yet another opportunity to kind of digest what gets presented tonight, kind of think about it, make notes, kind of think of some questions, and then we will have the town hall meeting next Tuesday for some additional public engagement. We do not plan on the council making a decision on any of this tonight, so there's probably not going to be a vote and a decision because we have the town hall meeting, so we want to finish engaging the public on this. So anyhow, with all that being said, this is for public comment for items not listed on the agenda. We do have forms in the back of the room on the table. We have a 30-minute time limit for this portion of the meeting, although we rarely hit that. If necessary, we continue this portion of the meeting at the end of the meeting to allow all members of the public to be heard. We do ask that speakers come to the podium and begin with their name and city of residence, and there is a 3-minute time limit imposed on the speakers. I currently have 3 requests to speak. First up is Mr. Loeb. Good evening, Mr. Loeb.
Good evening, everybody. Charles Loeb, Terrace Park, and I got a miscellaneous group of subjects to talk to you about tonight. First of all, I'm glad it's Public Service Week because I do want to compliment the people, Mr. Warrenfelds and the public service staff for pitching in and taking care of the bathrooms in the library. You don't know how many compliments I've heard about that, and I did want to make sure you all know about that. That's number 1. Number 2, tomorrow night is our meeting, the Terrace Park Neighborhood Association meeting, where we'll be talking about the Museum of Science and Industry. We're going to have someone there from there. I'm willing to take any comments from anybody on it. I've gotten a few, and we're going to be discussing it and in rather length and all that. And if anybody has anything to say about it, we're going to begin our meeting at the library at between 6 and 6:30 p.m. tomorrow night. The next thing I have, I'm going to state an opinion, and I'm going to stick with this opinion. To me, what happened in this city with the EPA is, and those private companies, is an absolute outrage. And as far as I'm concerned, what would be, I view as justice, would be for them to reimburse you a good portion of the PFAS money and of the public safety complex. Again, that's my opinion, and I am entitled to it. Now, fourthly, I want to talk about Woodmont Charter School. They have made some really significant upgrades, or they're planning some, for 2026, 2027. I gave a list to the city manager of what I noticed, but I don't think it'd be proper for me to tell you, and I certainly couldn't answer the questions that you all might have. My suggestion to you all is that you all would come and invite them in to come and talk to you, and they can tell you themselves a little bit more detail of what these upgrades are. They're very significant from what I saw on the signs outside walking by, and I think you and the citizens would be very, very interested in them. Finally, now I have a little bit extra time. I was thinking about Memorial Day. We should think about, of course, we all know it's the beginning of the summer season and so on and so forth, but we should take some time to think about the people who gave their lives so we would have freedom today. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Loeb. Now we have a couple of very special speakers. We have some young ladies here from the Girl Scout Troop 32608. And the first one to speak, and where's Mary? Mary, we might need some help with the microphone, I'm not sure. So I'm thinking if Serena stands behind the podium, nobody might be able to see her. So the first speaker is Serena Scott. And then we have Genevieve Allender. Are they going to speak together?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll be a little fluid with the time, I suppose. Well, good evening. See, I told you there was nothing to be nervous about. You guys aren't still nervous, are you? You shouldn't be. Just talk to us. We're just like regular people, okay? All right.
My name is Serena Scott from Troop 32608. These are also the girls in my troop, and we are here because we are working on a badge called Democracy for Cadets. When we have earned this badge, we will have learned new things about our government, how each branch works, and how they work together, and how each piece makes a difference in society. Step 1 is finding out about our local government. We are given 3 choices in this first step, and we chose 2. First, Miss Cherry Donahue spoke to us about our local government. Mrs. Donahue is a former council member who explained how jobs are done and how local elections work. The reason we are here today is to see democracy in action by attending a meeting where the public is given time to speak and share their thoughts and possibly see how a vote turns out. The rest of the steps to earn this badge will be learning about our state, federal, legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government. Now I would like to introduce Genevieve Allender, who would like to give the council some feedback from our troop. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Genevieve Allender. I made a simple survey a couple months ago of what my troop likes about our city. The top 3 things they said were the trees, fun activities, and safety. The other things they wished were better was traffic. When asked what makes our community more likable, they said, number 1, safety, number 2, fun activities, and number 3, job opportunities. The last thing we asked was if they were to write a letter to City Council, what would they say? They said, thank you to our first responders, and as we grow, keep us feeling small. We also agreed that Temple Terrace was the number 1 city in Hillsborough County. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You guys did a terrific job. Thank you for joining us tonight, and that's a very insightful project that you have going on. So thank you, Mrs. Donahue, for taking that on and working with them, and in the blink of an eye, they will be up here on this dais as council members. So very good. So that is currently all the requests I have to speak at this portion of the meeting. Are there other members of the public who wish to address the council at this time? Okay, very good. We will move on then to our consultant report. This is Water Treatment Facilities Master Plan, and Ed Talton, our CHA Consulting Senior Principal Engineer, is here to explain. Good evening.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, esteemed council members, city clerk, city manager, and city attorney, as well as the citizens of Temple Terrace, it's an honor to be before you tonight. One of the things that's in the title, and it's an appropriate week to say this, is I want to thank, and it's a great week to thank our Public Works folks for keeping our water running for 40 years, right? Water is a critical resource, and when we open that tap, we expect water to come out, right? And I credit the elected officials for performing this project to keep the water running for another 40 years. So you talk about actions, this is an action that will keep it going. All right. This was a master plan of your water treatment facilities and supplies, and this is a pretty brief summary of what we found. For our objectives when we set out onto the master plan was number one, we want to identify what's needed for your 2 water plants to keep them running for the next 40 years, right? To improve the product delivery so that we move into the future with excellent water service going forward as well as behind us, continuing to meet state and federal regulations. We also want to meet those new EPA PFAS regulations as well, right? There's a timetable to do that and some big news on that as well. And PFAS, as you know, is per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. We'll go into a little bit of that, but I think everybody's pretty up to speed on what those are. We want to select a renewal plan that minimizes the rate impacts to your citizens, because treating PFAS and removing it from your water is a pretty expensive endeavor, right? You already know that. And so our plan needs to minimize the rate impacts to the citizens, and it's a good thing you have your rate consultant here to follow that up as well. So we kept that in mind throughout this project. And the last objective of the master plan is to provide costs and budgeting going forward to take care of the plant, keep it running, and meet those future regulations. So that's the mission of this plan. A little bit of background. CHA was hired by the city in 2024, and I stood before you at last August in the PFAS Town Hall, and I really had a good time talking with folks. It's not a great situation to be in, but it was really good to hear and absorb what the elected officials and the citizens really felt from that, and we embody that in this project. So we understand everyone's concern, and we want to go forward with a plan that meets not only yours, but the citizens' objectives. And the mission is to provide that framework for the water treatment and supply going forward. And by framework, we mean what facilities are needed, what treatment processes are needed, when those things are to be timed, when we need to spend the money to keep those moving forward. CHA, just a quick brief thing about CHA. We are an engineering firm, and we provide services to cities like Temple Terrace all over the state of Florida, I-4 corridor, as well as nationally. And we're a firm that's focused on water quality. We're full service and we're local, right? We have a Tampa office. I'm from the Winter Springs office, and I grew up in DeLand, Florida. So, we're local to you, and we feel like we're a part of the community. I had a 40-slide presentation for you tonight, but I understand that, people have important things to do, so we boil it down, and I'm going to hit you with the top 3 conclusions from the treatment master plan right now. So we really viewed this as a 3-headed challenge. There's 3 big things that we got to address. And Mr. Vice Mayor, the water treatment plants were built just shortly after the tennis court, right? So they're old. So I'm not saying you are, but in water plant age, they are old, and they're nearing the end of their service life. In order to keep those running, they have to be renewed. And there is good news on that, because you don't want to come into a situation and have to remove PFAS in a brand new plant that you just spent a lot of money to build. These things have served the community well, and they've lived out their life. So now is a good time to move to a more efficient process that not only addresses your short-term needs, but also your long-term. Softening, right? The water is pretty hard here, right? It's up there on the scale of hardness, and we need to provide a softer water to the community to improve that product delivery, right? PFAS. Removal is needed. Big news on that today. The deadline got pushed out, but it really hasn't changed anything or the timing of what we need to do. It's taken a little bit of pressure off us, but I don't think that we're really slowing down with the effort to not only renew the plant, but also to remove the PFAS. And so there's work to be done that to meet that 2031 deadline, and there's no real taking your foot off the gas at this point. And lastly, when we treat this, we're going to end up with a concentrated stream of PFAS, and we need to handle that in a sustainable manner and deal with that. The graphic at the bottom shows a little bit of the process that went on for the master plan, and there was a lot of work that went into that, but we're going to get to those three conclusions really quick. Conclusion number one. The Whiteway is 40 plus, that's one of your water treatment plants, is 40 plus years old. There's substantial rehabilitation needed. We've toured the plant, we walked all through it. There's electrical needs, there's structural needs, there's treatment needs. So it has major needs, and water is a critical service, and you really can't take the risk of operating a plant that's near the end of its life. When you're dealing with a critical service, right? You wouldn't send your firemen out in a 40-year-old fire truck, right, to put out the fire. So same with water. Just not even considering PFAS or softening, that the Whiteway plant needs $30 million to get it back up to speed, right? So that's what's needed, not even thinking about PFAS. And so same with Sunningdale. That is a 30-year-old facility, and we've chosen to efficiently convert that to a booster station so that we don't have to upgrade that treatment process too. The consolidation of the treatment into the Sunningdale from the Sunningdale facility to the Whiteway facility provides you a lot of operational efficiency, and it's going to make it less costly for and minimize those rate impacts. A little bit of graphic here. What you see is a 3D rendering some of our folks did of your existing plant, and we color coded the scoring on the treatment facility. This is the Whiteway plant on the left, and red it's about to fall down, right? So red is a critical need. That process is at the end of its life, and followed up with the filtration that's right behind it, right? So you see that, and on the right is a little what we call a deterioration curve. It's like any asset. They deteriorate over time, right? Like your tennis courts, right? So you need to paint those tennis courts. You need to resurface them occasionally. So you have to spend money to get it back up to serviceability. And fortunately for you, we're at a point where it really makes good sense, and it's a good time to spend that money and improve those plants. So it's not great news, but it is good news, the situation you're in, right? We're starting with a blank canvas, and we can improve that plant up to a state-of-the-art treatment level. All right, so we go to the second head of the challenge, and that is PFAS, right? And what do we need to treat? So we exceed the PFAS, and it's not only a City of Temple Terrace problem, it's a regional problem, it's a national problem, it's a global problem, right? We're in the same boat. I had in the report, there's a map from UF Health that shows the proliferation of PFAS in the state of Florida's groundwater that we drink, right? It's ubiquitous, right? Every urban center is loaded, not loaded, but has PFAS in it. And that's the situation we're in, right? We're not as bad as some of the other folks. We're in the low parts per trillion. People that live near Mohawk Carpet, Bainbridge, Georgia, they're in the thousands and tens of thousands of parts per trillion. They're really up the creek. We have a little bit of PFAS that we got to get out. It's not a major catastrophe. It's not a major health issue yet, but it's something that the EPA has said we have to address. Let's go. We also have hardness. Your water is considered very hard, and I'm sure the citizens know that, and probably most of them have softeners, as we talked about last August. And we have a chance now to improve that citywide. And so city and their staff have set a goal of less than 150 parts per million of hardness, calcium and magnesium, and that'll make the water, very high quality and easy to, wash your clothes and take showers and things like that. So that will pretty much take away the need for softeners, home softeners as well. We have future contaminants to worry about, more microplastics, pharmaceuticals, those things that the EPA is looking at coming down the pike. So the city staff wanted to make sure that whatever we choose to do, that we can address those future contaminants coming down the pike as well. When we talked, there's a few processes that remove PFAS. Some of them, one's called granular activated carbon. One's called ion exchange. Those are the lower cost, easier ones. And unfortunately, we did pilot testing at the plant on your water. We also did it in a laboratory. And those easier, lower ones did not remove as much PFAS as we wanted to. And it also made it costly because you had to regenerate the carbon in the ion exchange, throw it out, and regenerate it far too often. So that made the operational costs high. But the other thing is those processes don't soften. So a lime softening, let's say, a lime softening does not remove PFAS. And in this case, we identified a membrane process that actually does the softening and removes the PFAS, right? So when we did the cost, and you can see them up on the side there in the lower table, just to rehab your plant with lime, no PFAS removal, would cost $36 million. And that's the bottom right table. If we put in a nanofiltration plant that can soften and remove PFAS, that's actually a similar cost. It's a little bit higher operationally, and you can see at the bottom line, just the lime softening will cost you $2 a 1,000 gallon. The nanofiltration costs you $2.25. For a small increment more, you get the PFAS removal also. So from that standpoint, when we had to remove both of them, it almost became a no-brainer that nanofiltration was the way to go. And nanofiltration is a membrane process. They call it membrane softening. It's proven technology up and down the coast of Florida. It's used widely, and it's a good fit for your source water. So, we took a route to get there. We tried the lower cost things first, right? We wanted to keep rates low, and they just didn't work well enough. And good thing we've got something that killed two birds with one stone, right? And kept the cost at something that's reasonable, let's say. None of these costs are reasonable, I'm going to admit that, but compared to trying to do both, and it's going to save us money. So, and produce a water that meets not only current regulations, but also future. Up in the right-hand table, you can see the comparison of the GAC and the ion exchange. And yes, so all three of those remove PFAS. GAC and ion exchange do not remove hardness, right? So, they removed one, but not both. Nanofiltration removes both. The future contaminant, limited on the GAC, limited on the ion exchange, the nanofiltration, high. The other thing is these membranes are custom designed, and the membrane manufacturers are working on different molecular designs that remove PFAS and only some of the hardness. So the bottom line is you can change out membranes and change your treatment process without having to, major cost of infrastructure. So it's a flexible process that you can, in the future, put tighter membranes in or looser membranes should the need occur. So, and lastly, long-term flexibility, that I just mentioned that, and sustainability, it led us to an easy conclusion that nanofiltration is the way to go for the city. Oops. All right. Oop, I went too far there. Okay, there we go. All right, just as a check, right? And everyone asked for this, and this is our due diligence. And credit to your staff that went and met with the City of Tampa and Hillsborough County on, hey, can we connect to your water systems and avoid a major cost and use your water? Well, they have PFAS too, right? And there's a major capital cost to get their water from them to us, and it's something in the $30 to $40 million range, which would be the cost of a new plant, right? And that would give you, complex interagency and disinfectant changes. You'd be changing from free chlorine to chloramines, which is a big problem and a lot of hassle for your to maintain that. Nitrification is something that occurs in chloramine systems, and you really don't want to deal with that. We mentioned the substantial infrastructure costs, and the bulk purchase cost is $4 a thousand gallon, and we just looked at that we can treat the water for $2.25 a thousand gallon, right? So this is from running the numbers. Connecting to the neighboring utilities is the costliest alternative. It is the highest cost option, and it also gives you a potential for higher costs in the future that you may not have full control of. So at that point, I certainly did their due diligence, and we evaluated the results, and it's a decision we checked. Now, if I flip back up to the top, and this occurred at the public meeting, there was an engineer that lives in your city, and she was a very smart engineer, and stated that, why don't we go to a well field that does not have PFAS, right? We can find some PFAS-free water somewhere, right? So as she mentioned, USGS did a study, and there's some monitoring wells that go a little bit deeper than yours, and so we want to look at those in the future going forward. And we also proposed an exploratory well to test deeper into the aquifer, even than the monitoring wells go, and to look for cleaner, PFAS-free water. That's worth a try, right? And we also need some additional supply if we're going to consolidate the treatment at Whiteway. So that's something that we did recommend, and I think it's something that would be worthwhile. And if not, we can repurpose that well for something else. So that's one of the recommendations of the report, and that falls in the category of non-treatment. But if you go deeper, you may actually need to treat that water too, right? So you may find no PFAS, but you might find high iron, high sulfide, high hardness again, and you'll have to soften that water as well. So there's no panacea here going to a crystal clear water that may or may not exist, but it's worth a check. Let's go on to the next one. All right, we're at conclusion number 3. Good thing we didn't do the 40 slide idea. PFAS destruction, right? When you concentrate the water with the nanofiltration or the reverse osmosis process, you create a concentrated stream that's loaded with calcium because you took it out of the water, and PFAS, right? So you have a stream of water that's high in both of those. And occasionally those will get treated as hazardous waste, and most every membrane softening or RO treatment plant up and down the coast of Florida has a deep injection well. So that's one option. We went with your staff to visit 2 of our plants nearby, City of Clearwater and Vero Beach. I kind of consider that a sister city to you, but both of those have deep injection wells, right? Now, there are other options, and there is some emerging destruction technologies, right, that are coming out of the gate that haven't gone to full-scale applications on a municipal system. And really, as engineers, we can't use something that's not been proven full-scale. So but we are monitoring those, and looking on the board, we even talked with some of the vendors, and down the road, we'll probably send some of your water concentrated up to some of those vendors to see if they can have luck destroying those. And those processes read like a sci-fi technology. They use sound, sonolysis to blast apart. A 2,000-degree furnace that's the way to break this PFAS apart, right? That's how tough it is. They use photochemical oxidation, things like that to destroy and blow those apart. The technology's evolving, and there's hopefully in 2 years we'll have something, a silver bullet that we can move forward with, and maybe we'll even avoid going to the deep well. But that doesn't exist yet, and we need a plan that we can move forward with. And that plan is proven. It's what every other membrane softening and RO plant in the state of Florida does, right? So Stewart just built one, the city of Stewart. So just a little cost comparison. You can see a deep injection well in the table there is pretty expensive, up in the $25 million range. And if we boil that down to cost per 1,000 gallons, that comes out about 73 cents a 1,000 gallons. So that's a big ticket. But if you look at the aqueous electrostatic concentrator, right, which is sort of a proven technology at this point, they have a couple applications. That's $1.94 per 1,000 gallon, right? So it works, but it's way more expensive, right? There's another one that has a 1 MGD plant, 1 million gallon a day plant up in Cary, North Carolina, on an industrial site. They do foam fractionation and a type of destruction. You know, that one is more in the range that we're looking for, right? Maybe 25 cents, a third of the cost of a deep well, right? And potentially we could reuse the water in the future, but it's just not there yet, right? And so we went with the proven plan and the proven technology to move forward with from this master plan. We'll be taking this master plan and moving into, you know, design and implementation. But again, the mission of this was to set out a budget for you guys to move forward and identify how much it costs. So your rate folks can, you know, work the numbers from there. All right. You know, we talked about the current condition of the plants, and there are, both plants do comply, but they are not capable of meeting the PFAS and the softening at this moment. They just cannot cut that, and the risk is too high to continue to operate those plants going forward for too much longer. So that's the situation, and it's great timing, but it more than PFAS. The risk at the plants may be the driver that pushes you forward faster. You know, so it's not a, oh, we're okay, take the foot off the gas. It is it's a critical service, and it should be treated as such. All right, we're going to get into the bad news, which is the estimated capital costs. And capital costs, they include the equipment, they include the contractor who installs the equipment, they include the taxes, the insurance, the bonding, the surveying, the design, you know, everything that's needed to put that project together. Contingency, we want to have a little bit of contingency in there so that we, you know, understand those. And frankly, what's happened in the last 6 or 8 months has probably even pushed costs higher than you know what we're you know seeing here. So what we're looking at, we divided your plan into 4 projects. We call them Project A, B, C, and D. And we've got some priority repair at the plant that is a critical item that needs to be addressed now. And so that's a small item, and that's easy to do. Project B is the exploratory well, and that has we're also pushing up against our water use permit. So we've got to negotiate with the Water Management District to increase that water use permit because we're going to need some extra water. Nanofiltration and membrane processes, they work on a recovery rate from 80 to 90%. So that means every 100 gallons you push through there, you get 90 gallons of product out. So we're going to lose maybe 5 to 10 to 15% of our water, and we need to account for that in our water use permit with the district. So that's on the list. And Project C is the electrical upgrades for the treatment plants. Those were in, I'm going to say dire shape. I don't want to use the word dire, but they're just old equipment, and there's some motor control centers that, should they fail, the lead time to get a new motor control center is 1 year, right? You could order one right now, and 1 year later, you'd have it. And so you'd have to have some folks out there manually operating the plant to keep the plant running, and that's a big risk right there. So that's something that we want to move forward with because I don't know, I used to work construction, right? And the first folks that come through are the electrical, when you're building a building, they come through and set the boxes, they set the wires and all that. So you send your electrical team out there first. They set the electrical system up. The plant, we want to look at potentially a second feed from TECO to increase some reliability and a loop around the plant and create a system that will serve you going ahead 40 years, that the staff keeps the staff safe. Remember the young ladies, their priority was safety. Electrical is a big safety issue. The last project is the White Way nanofiltration and the concentrate management, which in this case we've put in deep injection well, And that's the way to move forward. So you can see, hopefully things come in a little lower than this, but we're looking at about $66 million of capital costs for Whiteway and $5 or $6 million for Sunningdale just to keep that operating and convert it to a booster in the future. And you're looking at a total of about $72 million of capital costs. Now, from a schedule standpoint, we've got a little bit of leniency on the 2031, but again, that's one driver. I think the other driver is to get the plant renewed. And one of the things that we did look at was some interim treatment tasks that we could put in to bridge that gap between now and when we build a new treatment plant. So those items, could span from temporary granular activated carbon columns. We could fast track a nanofiltration skid. We could do a few other things that would help bridge that gap. But the lesson here is those nanofiltration skids probably are a year to build those as well. So, and the equipment and the electronics on that as well. So the thing is, those items also take time. So there is no quick fix on this. And one of the things, the idea that come up was let's fix our lime softening structure out there and let's get it by softening. And that's throwing good money after bad. So that thing is in such bad shape, it's much better plan to put your money into a new technology and something that will cover both those things, and trying to band-aid or patch up something that's just absolutely near the end of its life. So and again, it is a opportune time to come in there, and we've looked at cost savings items like using the existing building. We just were out at the plant today, and we think that's got the one that the staff is moving from that building to the new building up front. We potentially think that building could be used and save some capital costs. We also want to reuse some of the pump stations and some of the guts and wells around there that we can fit this nanofiltration in pretty seamlessly into your plant. So there's items we're working on to save costs, and those will be flushed out better in the coming implementation phases. All right, enough of the bad news. All right, so what we called it is a water treatment renewal plan, because these plants do need renewal. They need renewed infrastructure, they need renewed electrical, and they need renewed treatment that will meet those goals that the city has set for themselves. So on the right side, in the middle there is a view of what we plan to do at Whiteway, and that involves adding the nanofiltration systems in, and potentially some concentrate management and storage components that will help further concentrate that and send it to its final destination. Looking at the schedule, the things that we really need to start on now are electrical renewal, SCADA. We need to get those motor control centers ordered, and laid out, ordered, so that in a year we can get new ones and ready to go. And while we're at it, we're going to set the new electrical up for the new plant, right? It's just like in construction. The electrical folks are going to come through. That's going to save you money, because nowadays general contractors are in high demand, and they're charging high markups on subcontractors, right? And an electrical, if we hire them directly as a separate project, that'll probably save you 10 to 20% of cost right there by hiring a direct contractor. Reliability, that we've mentioned, that we need to get a valve fixed at the plant so that we can increase the capacity. The next year, we're going to be focused on implementing the nanofiltration. We're going to be modernizing the plant, and we're going to be really diving into the concentrate management. Where would we put a deep well? If we're going to put one of those, we're pretty. We've got a really good hydrogeologic sub-consultant that's already spoken with the city, not under contract, but that's ready to get moving on this soon. There needs to be talks with the district, and we need to get those items moving. Sunningdale in 2028. That will begin its renewal and its transition to just becoming a booster station instead of a water plant. But we need to keep that online until the plant is fully up and running, the new plant at Whiteway. From a future capacity standpoint, if we retire Sunningdale, it puts us in a little bit of a jam, so we've got to increase the capacity at Whiteway to make up for that. And that's going to cost a little bit of money as well. That's baked in the plan. But I think it's well worth it, and it's well worth the efficiency of having the treatment in one place and having the concentrate without having to ship the concentrate across the city to a common management site. And from there, 2028, 29, 30, construction, will get moving, and you'll have a brand new state-of-the-art treatment plant that can handle whatever's coming at you. So that is the recommended renewal plan. That is not all we have, because we understand that this is a big cost and a big hit, and there is funding available. And so part of our report identified some of the funding avenues. We've also got others in the fire, and that we're going to be going after, and it's going to involve potentially state and federal appropriations through legislation, and we're highly skilled at that, as well as your rate folks and some of the other financial folks that work with your public works department. So that is our next task, is to find money. The gentleman said it himself, right? We shouldn't be paying for this if somebody else polluted our water, right? So, we need to go out there, and we are going to pay for it, but we're going to try to minimize the amount we pay for. So in that some of that, everybody else is racing for the same deadline, and as sooner we can get to those funding allocations locked in, the better off we'll be from a rate impact standpoint. So that's all I had for you today, and I just want to say a credit to your public works staff, because they were really partners with us. Whenever I do a master plan, and I've done a lot of them, it's not my plan, it's yours. So that's what we tried to make this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Telton. So we're going to open it up for public comments. I currently only have one request, but assuming there'll be more in, let me just explain to everybody how this goes. We'll open it up for public comments. Just like the previous public comment section, everybody gets 3 minutes per speaker. We do ask, like before, that you come to the podium, state your name and city of residence. You guys will jot down the questions. It won't be one person comes up, ask a question, and they answer it, and then the next we'd be here all week. So we'll jot down the questions. All right. After public comment is done, then the council members will ask their questions. All right, and then the presenter or our staff or whoever is relevant will get back up and try to respond to the questions and comments to make sure everybody has their questions answered, as well as the council member questions. And then the council may have some discussion at that point, but that's council discussion. That's not community discussion. That's at the town hall. So, okay. So at this point, there are the forms at the back of the room. You don't have to. But right now, all I have is one, and that's from Chris Barquin. Mr. Barquin.
Thank you. Chris Barquin. I've lived in Temple Terrace for 40 years this October. First 18 were in Raintree, where we have Tampa water, which has much lower PFAS levels. It's not as hard. Moved across the street. 22 years later, we got a water problem. When I came in here this evening, I was initially going to talk about the water softening. And in reading the report, it appears like we haven't had water softening in the city of Temple Terrace in almost 2 years. I kind of blame that on deferred maintenance, no maintenance at all. And then I started thinking about the problem from a 10,000 foot level. You got two primary people on this project, that gentleman right there and this one right here. They can't be running around chasing low-hanging fruit that comes from assignments and expect them to take care of this. This is the critical project in Temple Terrace right now. It's not a police and fire station out on Harney. It's nothing else but this. This is critical. In the report, the gentleman cited the $72.6 million, but that didn't include the $20 to $25 million for the deep well. So are we dealing with 72 or 95 or 97? And then in another portion of the report, they cite $125 million with 88 for Whiteway and 37 for Sunnydale. So that needs to be cleared up. The big question I've got is this. the city knew of this, at least someone in the city knew of this back in 2024. Here we are in 2026, we're still drinking the same water. We're going to go to 2029, 2030, or maybe 2031 before anything actually gets done in treating this stuff. The closer you get to 2031, the supply chain problems are going to grow. And that lead time that might have been a 1 year or 2 years to get some equipment in there is going to double, and the prices are going to go through the roof. I asked at the town hall meeting last August about interim mitigation methods that could be done. The consultant said, oh, the lead times were horrendous, and then I gave him the name of a company in Kansas that had 2 weeks lead time to get trailer-mounted units that could handle 5 MGD. And he said, oh yeah, that's correct. I think we need to look at some interim measures right now, because people can't be drinking this water, which is identified in their own report as possible cancer causing, for the next 5 years. Thank you.
Mr. Loeb.
Charles Loeb, Terrace Park, and I actually have just 2 questions. Number one, is this going to be, all this information going to be online available to the public before next week? So they can read it and all. In other words, both 13A and 13B. And the second question, I admit I'm a little confused when looking at the $72 million figure that you're all talking about. I'm not sure if that includes just the water treatment plants, or if that includes the water treatment plants and the PFAS as well. Thank you.
Are there other members of the public who wish to comment? Okay, council members' questions. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions, and one is, my understanding is that the Temple Terrace area, we have no direct contaminant. We don't have a specific polluter. It's basically the PFAS are in the rainwater at this point, so they filter down into the aquifer, and is that what makes dropping the wells deeper less potentially cost-effective? Not, instead of expending that money to drop the wells deeper, we should just go ahead and plan on treating the water with the current depth of the wells.
Oh, good question. And that is the, so if we found PFAS-free water, right, it still might need some treatment in other categories, and we still might end up spending the same amount of money. One single supply well is in the $5 to $7 million range. So you just think one supply well, that's $5 to $7 million you just spent, right? And in hopes of what you're going to get. Conversely, your existing wells are pretty much a good nanofiltration feed. They do have PFAS, but they're low in turbidity, they're low in hydrogen sulfide, they're low in iron, and they're low in the things that would foul up membranes. So they actually make a really good, and they're fresh. There's no salt in them. When we go deeper, we're going to hit some salt. We know that already. We did Clearwater wells, and so that is an option to just go ahead and treat the wells that you have. We do think one exploratory well is worthwhile, and if we do that, we think we can get that funded under the district and the FDEP's alternative water supply funding grant. So if we could get that funded and not have to pay for it, we think we could get that for, pennies on the dollar. So that is worthwhile to see what else is down there. And if it doesn't pan out as a supply well, it potentially would set up for your deep well. So it would be the first leg of your deep well. So that's where we would not waste the money doing that, but we would do it in a way that if that well did not work out, we could use it for a deep injection well.
Okay, so you talked about needing to increase capacity at the White Way treatment plant if Sunnyside becomes the booster as your recommendation. Is there, right now there are wells that feed Sunnyside. Is there not a way to use those wells versus adding capacity to the current wells that we have feeding White Way?
There is, but what it would take is your well fields are like this. So in order to get Sunningdale wells over to White Way, we'd need a pipe to go over there, and that pipe might be $2 or $3 million as well. So it's not free to get it over there. So the thought was, hey, let's look at a well near White Way to avoid that cost and potentially find a better source. So that's a question that, we weighed heavily, and we didn't recommend this lightly. And we do think, again, that we could get funding for this. We're going to call it an alternative water supply well. Tampa Bay Water came about because they don't want any more freshwater wells, right? So the district is going to say, yeah, you can drill a new well, but you're going to go down to the lower Florida and into the salty water. And we're going to, okay, we could potentially switch some of our wells over to another side, but then again, it might be cheaper just to run the pipe over, just like you propose. So those are some details that are going to get worked out in implementation in the design, but we think the recommendation is good and firm, and if we can get that funding and move forward and get a well drilled as part of an alternative water supply grant, then we feel like we know what's down there, and we would have addressed that concern. Maybe we do find, the panacea of clean water down there, but that's a possibility. So, as well, the existing monitoring wells in the city that the USGS did back in the day, those are potentially, that's pretty cheap to go sample those wells and flush them out and pull and to see what's down there. That'll give us a better idea as well. So we've talked this through with probably the best hydrogeologists in the state, and we think the plan is good. And I think it's something that's in the city's best interest. The alternative is always on the table, right? To pull those Sunningdale wells over to White Way, that's on the table. And during design, or we don't get the grant and it's lower cost to just pull those Sunningdale wells over to White Way, then that's a good option.
Okay, so then I have a couple questions about the actual White Way treatment plant, and that is that site large enough to handle being the only treatment plant for the full city and potentially future growth?
Oh, sure. And that the site is big enough. That's the answer. And the beneficial thing about nanofiltration, it's relatively compact as far as a treatment system is concerned, right? It's much smaller than your lime softening plant, right? And we're going to be demolishing that lime softening plant, so we'll have more room as well, and you probably get some good scrap metal money out of that. But so from the capacity standpoint, we feel that it's better to have it at one plant. And we feel that you do have enough room there. Here's the details of it. There's one single 16-inch pipe running through White Way, right, that runs through the plant. And it has a capacity of 5.00 million gallon per day, right? We can't get any more out of that 16-inch plant. But luckily for us, all good treatment plants have two trains, right? You don't want to rely on one single point of failure. And right now, White Way has a big single point of failure, that one 16-inch pipe. So the plan is, and this was suggested at the behest of one of the city staff, we want two trains that go through it, and we're going to lay a parallel 16 through the entire plant so that we can leave the existing plant running, put the new pipe in, and have the two trains that give us potentially 6 and even higher. In theory, you could get 10 MGD out of that, but you probably wouldn't push it that far. So you could go up in capacity, and membranes are modular. So if we leave space in a building to put another module of membranes in, then that's what you do, and you size your header pipe for the future. So that'll be decisions that that are made based on the capacity that you actually need.
Okay, so then my last question has to do with the cost.
Yes.
And I know that there were multiple recommendations. I mean, the report was 218 pages, so I know that there were multiple recommendations, but ultimately, the one you presented tonight was the number one choice, being, at least in your recommendation, to be cost effective and handle the needs. So that 72 million, would that provide all of the cost, at least as we know today, based on today's estimation, to renew the plant because it's at the end of its life, but also to meet the needs for the PFAS remediation as well? Is that the 72 million, the full encompassing cost for the full project?
It does. The only other cost that's out there is you're going to increase your operation and maintenance cost. And just to answer the other, yours and the other gentleman's question, in the 72 million, there's a line item for 26 million that says concentrate management. And that is the deep injection well. So we labeled as such because it may give us some flexibility to find a lower cost in the future. So, but that is the actual cost for deep well. Gentleman here, we just put one of those in Stuart, Florida, a deep well. We know exactly what they cost, right? So, and you know, so from that standpoint, your second question again?
Well, what I just wanted to make sure that when we were looking at that price, that was encompassing the entirety of the project, not
Right.
that there wouldn't be, I understand it's an estimate based on
Yes.
today's construction cost, but I'm talking about just the expectation.
That covers everything. And the last point, the number that was in the funding document in the appendix, that was a present worth value that did cover all the additional O&M that would occur over the life of the plant. So that's why that was put in there, because you know that those are costs that the city will have to bear through ratepayers. So from that standpoint, our funding subconsultant put that number that was the present worth, which is your capital cost plus your annual cost smashed up into the present. So that's a summary of all the costs, both capital and operating. The $72 million is the capital cost. The 120 something number in the back, that's a present worth value that does include the additional operation cost for the nanofiltration. So what happens, it's got a little higher pressure than what you're running now, and you have to replace the membranes every so often. You have to clean them, things like that, and it's just it has a little higher operations cost than a lime softening, but it removes PFAS, right? So you know you get that benefit, and you're still going to have to pay for it through the operating cost as well. So I hope that answers the question.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Okay, I have a couple. So, other than having 2 trains in the plant, what else do you plan to do to keep our service going during these couple years of renovating that plant?
All right. So we did look at other options, and the gentleman's right. We could bring skids out there to treat the PFAS, but with facing $72 million, the better way to do it is expedite the addition of the nanofiltration. Your plant is ready to add that in, but first off, we got to get the electrical taken care of, the bubble. We thought about putting some granular activated carbon in your filters, right, so that we could run through there and remove a little bit more PFAS. But that does nothing for the hardness, right? So that we're and the decision to not put $1 into the lime softening process is a good one. We could, but that's money that you're not going to get back, and you're much better served by accelerating the implementation of this more robust process into your system. It's not like we have to go out there and build a giant tank or giant pipes. We've got a building that we can potentially fit this in, ready to go. We've got a pump station that we can modify to get this in. So there's ways to expedite this, going forward that don't waste the taxpayers and the ratepayers' money, right? So we don't want to do that. We're facing a major capital, mountain that we have to climb, and we need to put our capital towards the solution, right? Not a Band-Aid that's going to, let's say, not work. Very well. So that getting the lime softening unit back up and running would take $3 to $4 million. We had the manufacturer of the lime softening come out there and give us estimates on how to get that back running. Right? We tried everything. We tried all the we tried to pull all of the low hanging fruit. So from that standpoint, there are ways to handle this, but the best way is to move this forward as rapidly as you can. Put the money that you would pay towards a mobile treatment unit into expediting the electrical, get this plant safe to even operate for your operators, and move forward with this nanofiltration addition. So.
Okay, thank you. Got three more. With this system, how much more PFAS from the wells will this handle? You mentioned that we could keep going up, double, triple, 10 times. I mean, when would we come to the end of this if the groundwater keeps getting worse over time?
Yeah, and through the project, we haven't seen the PFAS increase too much. The hardness has increased in the last 3 to 4 years, and somebody asked the question of your wells, right? Your wells are relatively shallow, and they are under the influence of surface water, meaning the Hillsborough River. So they're under not only other groundwater flow, they're also under the influence of the Hillsborough River. It's the USGS study said it takes 10 years to get from the river to your wells, and that's a lightning fast time in well age. Usually it takes 100 years, 1,000 years to get from a river to a well, right? So, but this takes 10 years, and I don't know if the PFAS is, where it's coming from. That's at this point, if you look at that UF health map, it's everywhere, right? It's and we're facing it, and the thing we have to do is circle the wagons and get it out of our water. To answer your question, we're pretty certain that we could handle what increases would come our way in the next 40 years. Let's say that. So unless there's something that happened that we don't know about, but even that said, there's ways to handle that too. So if the nanofiltration is the most flexible way to handle this, right? So we can change the membrane out if the water quality changes. And in fact, Clearwater had to do that after a certain amount of time. Their water quality changed really rapidly, and we had to adjust their membrane types and pressures to adjust for that changing water. And that's down in the lower Floridan. So even the lower Floridan aquifer can change rapidly. So this is the process that has the flexibility to handle future water quality changes.
Okay, two more. One, with Sunningdale closing and everything going out of Whiteway, do we have the distribution infrastructure to get the water out of the plant to the neighborhoods?
That's one of our first missions and recommendations in this report, is to take a quick look at that. One of the things we need to do is see whether we've got to get the water from Whiteway to the storage tank, right? The both of them, China Berry and Telecom, right? You have storage tanks out in your distribution that function. Currently, Sunningdale functions as a peaking facility, right? So we've got a little constriction at Whiteway at the moment, and that's that priority project to get rid of that constriction. So once that constriction is away, we can get the full 4 MGD, 5 MGD capacity out of Whiteway, and we'll just have to crunch those numbers. So that is a minor engineering study that needs to be performed to confirm that.
Okay, thank you. And the last one, I think, is for staff, and you may not know it off the top of your head, but if with this project, are there any projects that are currently on our 5-year capital plan that would come out, like in rewiring an area or something? You don't have to answer now, but that's a question I would have.
Yeah, you're talking rewiring electrical?
Well, I don't know there may be rewiring of the plant in year 5 of our long-range plan that I don't know about or anything. I'm just saying, is there something that's included in this project that we may have already in our plan that we can remove?
So I think this plan, as you can hopefully see tonight, is pretty comprehensive. Jason and I will talk as to whether there's anything else in terms of the entire water utility that we may have to move which we do every year. I mean, the council knows when we come with a capital project, we move projects around depending on the circumstances that given year. So we'll get back to the council on that.
Thank you. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember?
Thank you, Mayor. I got a couple of questions. First, I'm a little confused. If we're going to basically shut down Sunnydale, correct?
We're going to convert it to a booster pump station. So it's going to take water from Whiteway and boost it down the road to the nearest storage tank, right? So it will convert from a water plant where it has wells to something that boosts up pressure out to your distribution system to provide pressure service.
So we're going to cap the wells that feed Sunnydale.
Well, that's dependent on if we need the wells or not. So yeah, so that's
Okay, well, so it's either way. If we cap the wells, then that's fine. But if we don't cap the wells and we need that for additional volume, then we're going to still have to run pipe from Sunnydale wells, that location, over to Whiteway.
Yep.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Then what would be wrong with just taking the pumps that are there and forcing that into the Whiteway plant? Okay, and then that way we don't have to go back to Swift Mud for additional pumping capacity through Whiteway.
So using the Sunningdale pumps to pump back to Whiteway?
Yeah.
Well water.
Well, water before, to be treated. I mean, if we're going to keep it there, we still have to have pipes that's going to take it from Whiteway to Sunnydale to Chinaberry or whatever.
Sunningdale doesn't have treatment that
Understood.
You're right.
Understood.
But yes, if you extended a pipe from you could potentially use the existing well pumps to get over to Whiteway, but you would need a pipe to get there.
Right.
Right.
Okay, that's I'm a little confused of how that logistics is going to work, but that's something we could discuss further.
So that's the raw water going there, and then we need the finished water coming back, right? So
Correct.
Yeah.
But if it's a booster pump, we're still going to have the finished water coming from Whiteway to Sunnydale, and then Sunnydale, its natural network out to the other areas.
Correct.
Okay, so we're still going to have some kind of a pipe there.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't get that from reading here, but I may have missed that. The interim PFAS, we have residents who are very concerned about it. How could it logistically be integrated into what we've got now in existence while we're working on the new trains and so forth to help mitigate the PFAS levels?
Well, as the gentleman spoke to earlier, you could bring in, and other utilities are doing this, you could bring in, you could rent vessels, carbon vessels, to temporarily remove the PFAS. The thing that we found with the carbon is that you have some of the smaller chain PFASs as well as the larger famous chains. So carbon doesn't remove those as well as nanofiltration does. So you would get the big chains out there. You might still be left with a few of the smaller chains. So
The skids are nano?
no, well,
Skids are carbon?
yeah, if you the emergency skids. We also tried to look at, and we talked to the Veolia because it's their filters about loading up, and the carbon folks because we know them well. We have multiple carbon GAC plants in Central Florida that we designed in the last 10 to 15 years. So we have multiple plants operating, and we know the carbon folks well. But we also tried to load it into your filters to see if we could temporarily treat it that way. And that might still be on the table, right? So there's something that we could do there. But they didn't come up with a very good plan to do it, right? So that, and there's depth issues, there's hydraulic issues in your existing filter, there's backwash issues in your existing filter. It's yellow, right? I mean, you'd have to spend some money to get those filters fully functional from a, backwashing and conversion standpoint. But certainly you could rent vessels and get them out there, and you could provide PFAS treatment. Wouldn't do a thing for the hardness, and so there we go.
Okay, I just wanted to make, because I understood that, I was under the impression that potentially the interim skids would be of the nanofiltration.
Right, and that's what we would propose is move forward with the nano skids.
No, sorry. But I'm saying the emergency skids, the interim skids,
Right.
would be would potentially be the nanofiltration technology, which would take care of the hardness and the other in the interim. Okay, because the hardness of the water has increased substantially through the last 3 years,
Yes.
and I've seen what comes out of the. monitor. I've seen what comes out of the water heaters that from just, in a 6-month period.
And here's the kicker. If you put in the nano, you need the deep well.
Understood.
So, we need to get moved forward on both of those.
Okay, and I think you may have answered one of my questions, was how much sludge, how much gunk is going to be created by these? And I got the impression that we're going to lose a million gallons a day in sludge. Is that what we're saying?
It's not really sludge, it's concentrate. So
lack of a better word. Okay, so you're going to have the heart and the calcium, you have the PFAS chemicals, plus there's going to have to be the water that you have to force it through, but it's going to be a lot more than what just PFAS.
It would be high in calcium, maybe some high sulfate, but I don't think there's anything else in there that would be, I'd have to check, but in certain cases, concentrate can be considered a hazardous waste, and that's why most utilities and most nano and RO plants do deep well it, right? But they have other things like salt, so it can come out with very salty water, so.
I was just curious, how much of this concentrate are going to be created?
Okay, so if the recovery is, typical is 85. We've got projections. We think we can get to 90. So for every 100 gallons of the well that comes in, 90 gallons will go out to the distribution system. 10 gallons will go to waste. And there's technology to further concentrate that, so we can get that 10 gallons down to maybe 5 gallons or 2 gallons.
That's where I was heading, because it's an awful lot of stuff to be
correct.
Putting into a deep injection well. That's going to fill that up rather quickly, I would assume.
There's even something called it's a massive boulder zone down there, and now I'm going to say there's things like they call them crystallizers that they put on the end of those where they can't get rid of the salt water that turn the water into pure salt, right? But they're very high energy and very expensive, right? So that's an option too, but that would probably be right up there with the electrostatic, plate thing.
Just a couple more questions. The tanks that we have now, they'll be the big tanks at Whiteway, they'll be salvaged?
Oh, yes, we need them, yes.
We don't have to rebuild them, is what I'm saying.
They're adequate size to go from 5 to 6 MGD. We've already crunched the numbers.
And the last question I had was want to verify and see what you're saying. The difference between the $72 million and the 125 that was mentioned in the back is the present value, more or less, of the O&M. That's going to be, how long is that lifetime? Another 40 years-ish?
Yeah, I'm going to have to check, but we probably used it 30 or 40 years.
Okay, that's fine.
That's the life
the
of a
exact
water
number
plant.
is irrelevant at this point. It's just covering the O&M in that time frame. Okay, I think that's all I have for now. Thank you very much. It's a good report. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kravitz.
Hi. Hope you're having a good evening.
Good evening.
So I take precision very seriously. So I just wanted to ask, when you describe parts of Whiteway plan as falling down, I'm guessing literary license, because I'm sure we would have heard from that. From staff about that?
But there's a couple, and the staff has done a good job addressing those, but there's a couple structural issues with that lime equipment that has some rust and is bordering on unsafe. So I apologize if I use that word, but it's just something that's at the end of its life, right? It's like an old car or something.
Not about to fall down.
No, it's not. But
just checking. Thank you. I appreciate the clarity on that. So I think my first question is, when we had our town hall many months ago, GAC and IX were discussed as options.
Yes.
And they were at that time regarded as being cheaper.
Yes.
So were you surprised at the outcome of your report when, as described and presented in the paper, and also as you've said tonight, were you surprised that the cost for all three options came out to be roughly the same?
We were surprised, and the value of, we did a really economical pilot study for you. We have pilot equipment ourselves. We basically put it out on your site for free. We didn't charge you any rent. And so we did City of Tampa did a $3 million pilot study, right? So ours was way more economical than that. And that's the thing that told us. We also did bench scale studies at the University of Florida and as well as on site also. And what it confirmed for us was that the hardness in the water had some interference with the GAC and the ion exchange, and we even softened the water, and we still had issues with the life of those two components. So that was surprising to us because we've seen more longevity for granular activated carbon, in this situation and for these waters, in other places in Florida. So it was a bit surprising.
So the main reason why GAC and IX cost more, is that because of the wear and tear that you just described?
It's the PFAS, and we didn't have a lot of on paper competing. Sometimes organic carbon can compete for granular activated carbon and ion exchange sites and blind the media, but we didn't have a lot of that, so we didn't expect that. But there was something in the water that was consuming the carbon faster than we expected. And the key to this was, and it was credit to your staff as well, they asked for a decision tree to be performed for the treatment process decision, and it was really a unique request, and so we took a shot at it, and our first shot really didn't pass muster with the staff, so we dug a little deeper, and we happened to find, it's in the appendix of the report, and you should go look at it if you haven't, but it's by the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, and it's written by 25 PhDs and peer-reviewed by another 25 PhDs, right? So it's a proven study, and the key point on that was if you have multi-contaminants to remove, which in this case we do, hardness and PFAS, then the decision tree steered you toward nanofiltration and away from activated carbon. Even if we would have found activated carbon to be good, it probably would have worked more as a short term, but we still would have had to soften the water. So we would have had to put a brand new lime plant in, and then the cost would have been the same or higher. So it just didn't make sense. And so from that standpoint, 50 PhDs confirmed. I went to the water conference in Daytona a couple weeks back, and North Miami and Miami-Dade, they spent $1 million studies to answer this question, right? And I was amazed at what the lengths they went to determine the treatment process, when in certain cases a decision tree like that would have been would have given them a much quicker answer. And I credit your staff for suggesting that, because it really turned out to be helpful.
Great. Well, I'm happy it saved time. So staying with the topic of cost.
Mm-hmm.
So the numbers that we have seen so far are as follows. The county connection estimate was between 25 and I believe 38 million.
Right.
And I think or 35 possibly. And the Tampa connection estimate was between 20 and 39 million. So you describe those as being the highest cost, and my question is, how is it possible that those are the highest cost, given that 40 million is significantly smaller number than 73 million?
Yeah, another great question. So City of Tampa and Hillsborough County don't give their water away for free, right? What do they charge you? A rate. And they gave it to your staff, and it's $4 plus 1,000 gallon. And you just saw numbers that say we could build a nano plant for $2.25 1,000 gallon. So you have to put the $40 million on top of the $4.25 or whatever the county was going to charge you, which is really they're wholesaling the Tampa Bay water wholesale, which equals a retail rate for you, right? So you're getting a water that hopscotched over to you, and they had to mark it up from theirs. I'll give you another exercise. Look at your wastewater rates, which the city does not control their wastewater rates, right? And if you look at your website, your wastewater rates are $11 per 1,000 gallon because somebody else does it, right? You know what your water rates are? What, $2.60 262, something like that. It's so that you can see when you're not in control of your rates and your equipment, you're going to pay higher money. You can look at your own webpage and determine that. But that's just how it is, right? They have to get the water from Tampa Bay Water to them, then over to you, and as well. And they've got major cap. They have to remove PFAS. They have to renew their plant. They're in the same. Nobody is getting plants for free, right? So you have to continually spend money to improve your plant. The rule of thumb is 1 to 2% of a plant value a year.
I understand. So to develop that topic slightly, if you're saying that the $30 million spread still means that it's cheaper to develop our own solution, does that mean that you've run an analysis of what it would save us? Basically, when you buy water from another source and you pay more, economically, it's identical to taking out a loan. So in this case, we would need $30 million of additional debt. If we don't do that, then we have to pay a little bit more per gallon. Either way, right, the ratepayer is going to be burdened, either with a $30 million loan or with a slightly higher per gallon rate, or let's just say a higher per gallon rate. So does that mean if you're making this claim that you've run the economic analysis on both of those scenarios?
Well, I'm going to say when I look at a retail rate or a wholesale rate that I have to pay Tampa Bay Water or City of Tampa of $4.20 cents a thousand gallon, and we can upgrade your water system for that $2 per thousand gallon. So you're going to be paying something like 6 to 7. I haven't crunched the exact number, but it's going to be something $6 to $7 dollars per thousand gallon to get water from them to you. So and then you have to pay your own staff and your distribution and all that as well on top of that. So the only thing you're going to save is you're not going to have to treat the water. You're still going to have to pump it. It's still going to have to come through Whiteway. You're still going to have a pump station that pumps it into your distribution. You're still going to have to upgrade Sunningdale to pump it out to the tank, and et cetera. So you're only losing the treatment part of it. You're not losing the whole infrastructure cost that you have to take care of and operate. So the distribution system.
Right. Well, I think, if I may push back slightly on that, we're not only losing out on that. Also, the deep well, the exploratory well, those are two major items that we would not need, because as you pointed out, I think in your slideshow today, other cities have already begun those, so we wouldn't need our own. Is that correct?
Right, but you're going to pay for the City of Tampa's deep well, right? They're planning on putting one in. So
that would be reflected in the rate we pay.
Oh, I don't know if it is or not. That's their current rate. So not what they're, after they upgrade their plant to PFAS removal and put the deep well in, they've got to raise their rates, right? So yeah, I get your point, and I'm not arguing your point. It's a balance, but it's clearly the numbers indicate that. Look at your wastewater costs. That's all I'm going to say. That you're paying 5 times what you pay for water for wastewater, right? And it's because it's outside.
Well, with all due respect, sir, we wanted to have an accurate reflection of what these different options would cost us and what they would mean for our city. So to be referred to my utilities bill to see what I pay for wastewater isn't giving me any information that I already don't have access to.
Certainly.
So all I'm saying is, and it's perfectly fine if you need more time to go back and research this and complete the task, but the thing is, we asked for a breakdown so that we could analyze the 3 options that we had on the table. One of them being to develop our own solution, the other one being that we could connect to Tampa, and the third one being that we might connect to the county. And so if we don't have accurate numbers and an accurate understanding of what these would mean for us, then that's a problem.
Certainly, I can get you that calculation. That's an easy calculation. I get that to you.
I would appreciate that. Staying with the cost topic, on page ES6 of your report, I found 3 different numbers, relating to concentrate management and or PFAS disposal and or well drilling. So I just wanted to try and understand what is going on here. And this is in the capital expense chart as well. So there's a number for I'm just going to ask you to explain at the end of this. So
Sure.
there's a number for an exploratory well, which is 7.1 million. There's a number for concentrate management, which is 26.8 million. And just a minute ago, what I heard was the number for concentrate management, that is the number for the deep well.
Correct.
However, on that same page, there is a line item called NF and deep well, and the number assigned to that is 57.1 million.
That's a total. So that's a total of those two, the NF plus the deep well.
Sorry. I'm going to check that for a moment. So, this is the 5-year total? Is that what you mean?
Correct.
Okay. And so why do I see above that in the total section, 57,144,389? That number carries down over, that's general WTP, and that's 57.144 million. And that then comes down to the lower end here on the project for the 5-year total. Is that the idea?
Right.
Okay. And so that's a separate, okay, good. Thank you for clarifying that. I'm happy to hear that that is just the total sum.
Yes, me too.
Which comes to the next topic. Sorry, I actually unfortunately have a lot here to get through. The single point of failure topic came up as well in your conversation. I agree with you that having a single point of failure is a problem. You mentioned that it was this, I believe, 18-inch pipe?
16-inch, yes.
16-inch pipe. We would also end up with a single point of failure if we consolidated Sunnydale and Whiteway, right?
That is correct, but you would have two trains to minimize that. So a single water plant is yes, it's better to have two water plants, but a single water plant with two trains is considered Class 1 reliability. So that's the best reliability you can get.
Okay. And when it comes to the well that you mentioned, the drilling, this 7.5 million, that the attempt might be free because we might get funding through some other source.
I didn't say free, but I said
pennies
on the dollar. We would hope to get a big chunk of it funded.
Okay. So that would be from where, this funding?
The district and the State Revolving Loan Fund, they have a category called AWS grants, Alternative Water Supply Grants, and we believe that going down into the lower Floridan would qualify for that.
Okay, good. So I'm going to bring that up, coming up shortly in the financing issue. So another point that I'd like to raise is this one. So the recent extension that was announced on this, my understanding is that it does require an application. You do not automatically get it.
No, you're right, correct.
Okay, so your assumption is that we are applying for it?
That would be the recommended approach, yes.
Right, because this announcement came yesterday. So the day before our meeting today is when this new rule with the application possibility and possibly a 2-year extension for people who might get it was announced. But in your slideshow and in your report, I saw, which surprised me greatly, that your entire timeline is based on 2031. So I can't imagine that you didn't go in yesterday and update everything to go up to 2031 timeline?
No,
did you?
we had some information that was going to change, so that we adjusted the report in advance of that, so we didn't have to go change it. So, yeah, we had some information that was going to change.
Is it your opinion then that we would not be able to complete this by 2029, by the original deadline?
We would have to get really moving fast, and there is a way to get it done by then, and it would take moving now. So.
Okay. Okay. So we've been given a plan that will require us to apply for an extension, because that is not anything that I think I would support at this time. So my initial reaction to the idea of going and asking for an extension on this is very negative. So I'm just going to be upfront about that.
Well,
and so I'm surprised that a report that was commissioned half a year ago or longer, a couple of years ago, well, the PFAS component was, I think, 6 years old, but the water maintenance component is older. That somehow presupposes that there are 2 more years than we originally bargained for.
I'm with you on this, and I feel that the bigger urgency is to get the plant upgraded, and so that's what I feel, the bigger industry. And I don't propose, and the report doesn't propose to sit back and wait. You can see the capital dollars that we have in there. You just you can only do so much so fast, and that's what we thought was realistic. You'll likely hear from your rate consultant that we may have to adjust that, but that's the first guess. And I'm with you 100%. Nothing in the report slowed down from the previous 2029 deadline.
Okay. Another thing that you mentioned in your presentation gave me pause, which was that concentrate can be hazardous waste. We don't have any guarantee that disposing of this waste in a deep well will remain legal forever, do we?
Right, that's the issue, and that's why it's a placeholder for now.
Okay, so, coming back to it again, there are uncertainties here, and there are many regulatory issues that might come into play that make it much smarter to assign all of these risks to an entity like Hillsborough County or Tampa, where if they suddenly have an issue with disposal in a deep well, it doesn't suddenly become something that we've spent $25 million on that we can no longer actually operate as infrastructure.
Right, and that's certainly your choice.
And if we were to run into a scenario like that sometime in the future, it would certainly be very smart to have paid more dollars per gallon over that period of time, I would presume, economically.
I think that's your job. I think, right, that is your job. We've laid out the numbers and what our recommended plan is, and I agree that those things have to be thought through, and that's something the city, its citizens, and you will have to decide.
We're getting to the end. I only have a little bit more. You mentioned that these nanofilters are better able to handle the water that we're giving to them than are the other filter options. However, I'm guessing that they still break. So what is the expected maintenance for these filters, the cost of replacement, the cost of repair, whatever it may be? Is that already accounted for in the economic plan that you've presented?
In the operating costs, it is.
Okay.
Correct. And membranes may last from 5 to 10 years, sometimes more. We presented to your staff. Your staff went and met with some local utilities that do the exact same process, and their plants require less operation. They are easy to operate, and they're let's say a more robust technology. But certainly they do have higher operating costs, and you saw that in our numbers.
Okay, and if one of these filters were to break, what would that cost?
Oh, well, you just open the tube and you pull them out and replace them with new ones, right? So that's how easy it is. So they sit inside pressure vessels, and each pressure vessel has maybe 8 or so membranes inside it, and there's certain things you can do to detect if a vessel has malfunctioned or failed, like something breaking through, and you just pull those off. It's relatively rare, and but it happens. There's no doubt about it.
How much does it cost? What's the question? Sorry.
Oh, to replace the membranes?
Yes, sir.
I'd have to get you that number. I don't have it off the top of my head. Membranes probably cost $400 to $500 for a single 8-inch element, maybe a little more, maybe $600 to $800 right now. But so yeah, to replace one element would be in that range.
Okay, so it's fair to say that it's a trivial cost relative to the overall system.
Right, and the plan is to bake that cost in as good as we know it today.
That's really reassuring. I'm glad to hear that. The last one is service disruptions during construction. So I'm presuming we're taking some of these components offline in order to work on them, right?
Well, good thing they're already offline, but the plan is to
Not
put...
all of them.
I know, yeah, the plan is to put that second 16-inch main through, and so that we can keep the existing plant in operation while we're constructing the new component. So the plan is to 100% keep the existing plant online while we're constructing the new plant.
Okay.
New components.
Right now, I'm just going to briefly go through questions. I got about 25, 30 questions from constituents. I'm just going to go through these and make sure that I've covered all of their concerns before I yield the floor here. So You mentioned drilling into deeper areas to find less contaminated water. I saw that. I think the second one you've already answered as well. You did not conduct an independent analysis of interconnecting with Tampa and Hillsborough. We're relying solely on your estimate, and that seems to be slightly ambiguous right now. Is that correct?
Well, the numbers need a further calculation, let's just say that, but they're clearly higher than what the costs were of the other options.
Wastewater treatment with reclaimed water generation, was that considered as part of long-range utility planning in this?
Wastewater treatment?
Yes.
Well, you would need a wastewater treatment plant.
Reclaimed water.
Oh, bringing reclaimed water in from an outside utility?
Locally.
Oh, yeah, from a connecting utility. That is a great idea. That was outside the scope of our study, but that certainly the city should look at that.
Okay, interesting. All right. Okay, and I think we were through it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
So you
Great
have the floor.
questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Talton, I've got a few questions. Let me start with what I think are the easiest ones. So, reading your report, I'm under the impression that the nanofiltration does not involve reverse osmosis. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. Reverse osmosis and nanofiltration are very similar. Okay. So there's a spectrum, and they overlap each other. So the reverse osmosis membranes are tighter, so they can remove salt. That's their goal. Nanofiltration membranes, and you hear the term membrane softening, right? So you don't need to remove salt if you've got fresh water with hardness. So you'll hear that term. That's more than nanofiltration. But actually, they overlap. And the membrane manufacturers are really scrambling to get a membrane that removes most all of the PFAS and only half the hardness, right? We don't need to remove all the hardness to get to our goal. So that if we find that membrane that's in the sweet spot, it'd be great. If we have to err to the conservative side, we'll be going towards the RO tightness, but you have fresh water, right? Your wells are fresh water. We don't need to remove salt, and we don't think but the line gets blurred in the middle, and you'll see the terms used interchangeably, actually. So. Okay.
The deep injection well, I understand. I don't want you to repeat everything you did because I had questions, but you explained it very well that this is kind of where the technology exists today is the deep injection wells for the concentrate affluent that is a byproduct of this. And that hopefully in the future it's something practical and will come along that we don't have to do that because I'm really not crazy about the idea of injecting this. We're trying to get this out of the environment, not move it.
Me too. I said that at the August 2025 meeting. I'm in the same boat as you.
We're just moving it to a place where it's not inconvenient to us right now, but I would really rather figure out a way to get rid of it, but that's beyond what you're, I know, I get it. So my questions concerning the deep injection well are where would that well be located and how deep is it?
Okay, so we've engaged a really top-of-the-line hydrogeologist, but they're not under contract with the city yet. So they've provided some just preliminary opinions. And the good thing about the geology underneath you is the deep well would not have to be as deep as some of the East Coast deep wells. So, and because our flow is not great, we don't need a giant deep well. So, but that is the recommendation to pull that thread, right? I can only give you abstracts right now. We need to get a hydrogeologist on board, discuss with the Department of Health, the Department of Environmental Protection, the Water Management District, and come to they have, sophisticated water hydrology models, hydrologic models that model groundwater flow movements. Those are the things that need to be done to answer those questions, right? So
we don't know how deep it would need to be.
I'm gonna. Our hydrogeologist told me, but I'm not going to shoot from the hip on this one. I can forward you her opinion, and that pretty much answers the question.
Okay, and I guess we don't know how deep it would be. Would also kind of determine where it would be.
Right, and that's question one too. Exactly. We're pretty sure we know how deep, But where is going to be the question we can locate it. And so we're going to look at the geology of what's underneath what's underneath Whiteway, where the best place is to locate it.
So if it's not co-located at the same water treatment plant, then we would be talking about another pipe to get it to wherever the well is.
Right. And it could be, off-site at another city parcel or something like that, but we would obviously try to locate it as close to the plant as we could.
So how big in diameter would that well be?
I'm going to say 6 inches, and so that's what I remember approximately that well would be.
So when Councilmember Schisler asked a question about how much affluent would be generated, I did some quick numbers on my phone here, and if we were to be pumping 6 million gallons a day and you had an 85% throughput, we would get about 1 million gallons a day of affluent.
Well, close to it, yes, sir.
So that would be a lot going down that well. Is that,
Yeah,
I assume you've done this before, so that well could take that.
Yeah, that's about 700 gallons per minute. So yeah, that's something in the 6 to 8 inch range.
Okay. So this part, I actually thought I was pretty clear on this until tonight, and then I got fuzzier, and the more this went on, the fuzzier I got. So when you talked about the exploratory well, and that's at $7.1 million, which I got a couple questions about that, because it's not all in 1 year. The exploratory well is $850,000 in year 2, $800,000 year 3, and $5.5 million in year. How do you drill a well over a 3-year period?
Well, the first part is permitting it, locating it, coordinating with the district on the modeling, and getting their approval, right? So we're not drilling a well unless they say we can, right? So that's the first step of the process. And some of it, it could be spread out a little differently. We did the best we could to estimate it, but
it seems to me like I get the permitting and the stuff like that. You got to go through that. That's an expense to do that. But once you start drilling a well, you drill a well.
Right, and we just think it'll take a little bit of time to answer the question as to where it goes and get it permitted and things like that. So
okay, so here's the part where I got fuzzy. What's the benefit in us doing this exploratory well at all for $7 million if we're going to have to do the nanofiltration system most likely on the deep water aquifer as opposed, we're doing it, our wells are working fine, they just have contaminants in them. We got calcium to get out and PFAS. But other than that, we have good water, it's just got to be processed better.
Right.
So what's the advantage of going to this deeper well where we're probably going to still have to do the filtration? Why don't we just leave the well out of it? I don't see what the advantage is.
That's a valid question, and that is something that could be easily done should you choose so. So that's the path we chose. Was we believe that we need an additional well at Whiteway when we go to 6 MGD. We know that, and so that's the kicker. So we either need that or a pipe from Sunningdale, and we just discussed that. But those are both valid options. There's no doubt. You could just say, hey, geez, we used to drill wells for $1 million, right? Now they're $7 million, right? That's so that's totally valid and something that could change down the road. That's
so. From a layman's perspective, I'm going to expose my ignorance here, I know. But after listening to this and reading this report, listen to some of the public comment, first of all, I don't understand the need, and maybe this will come out later as we review this, but I really don't understand any advantage to drilling the exploratory well. Why don't we just go with the wells we have and treat it? So number two is that frees up not frees up, it's the $72 million, there's nothing free about it, but that reduces the potential cost by $7 million.
Right.
So this is looking at a 2031 sunset. This is when this thing's likely to be operational, hopefully before, but it's still a number of years off. Having been in government for a long time, I know this stuff takes a long time. I mean, if we started today, I don't know if we'd make 2029, but, so, this isn't work direction, I can't do that, the council's got to discuss this, but it's just me thinking out loud. Is it feasible, I mean, everything's possible, but is it feasible to do some short-term mitigation while we undertake this? In other words, I read this thoroughly about what's going on at the White Way treatment plant. I've been out there, I don't understand the intricacies of the process, but I have seen every square inch of that property, so I know the condition of the equipment, what it looks like. Is it feasible to put some temporary PFAS mitigation? We already have a lime removing system in the pipe that doesn't do anything. It's on bypass. It hasn't worked. It's not working. We're not going to fix it. So is it possible to route the pipe that goes into that and the pipe that comes out of it and just go around it and put a temporary PFAS mitigation system in the process at White Way now? Now, I understand from what you said that it may not get us to our objective to get down to the levels that we're trying to get down to.
Right.
But it may remove a good percentage of what we have and take us down to a much lower level until we get the final solution online in 2030 or 2031. We could remove a portion of that. Even if we had to go buy one of these trailers as opposed to renting it for 3 years, if we didn't do the exploratory well, we'd have $7 million savings. We could go buy a trailer or two.
Right.
Now, in order for that to work, if these are NF trailers, we would have to drill the deep well first, which would change the scope of work because you got to have somewhere to put the affluent.
Right.
But couldn't we change, I mean, is it feasible to do the deep well first while we're engineering all the electrical and all? We got a lot of work to do out there. There's a lot of stuff to take time. Drill the well, put these temporary mitigation strategies in place, hopefully, even around the old water softening system that doesn't work, and then pipe that effluent into the well for the next 3 years. The only part of that I see we would be spending extra money is the trailers, the temporary fish that we would have to buy.
Right.
The well, we would have to drill anyway.
Right.
So is that feasible?
And I'm going to answer that question. In master planning, we start here at the 30,000 foot level. And as we go to preliminary design, we zero in and get more detailed, right? And the answer to that is yes, but I would talk to the district and the DOP, the DEP, the DOH first, right? And that's what you've got to involve, the whole picture, and you got to show them the plan and the options, and then they're going to determine also what might be feasible. They have groundwater models, and you need to run those to see, okay, we want to take the water from here and not here, and things like that. So the answer is yes, it's feasible. And as we go from master plan to preliminary design into design, you get more granular, you zero in on things like that. That's a 100% feasible, valid question. And that will be flushed out when we move on to the next step.
Okay, and let me just follow up with something that Councilmember Kravitz brought up to you. I just want to make sure that everybody understands where we are and what's coming next with this. There was discussion about a cost benefit analysis of hooking up to Hillsborough or Tampa in terms of water, and I get what you're saying, I understand. And first of all, this presupposes that Tampa's willing to let us hook on, which I'm not sure that's a good assumption because they've got capacity issues. But anyway, you said that you would be able to run some numbers and provide some. Now, the reason I want to go back to that is I don't want to exceed the scope of work here that you're under with the city. Can you do that and provide it to us? And if so, I mean, could we have it by the town hall? Because I will tell you, there's a lot of people in the city that are saying, why don't we just do this?
Sure, and yes, that can be done. The conversation and the information came at a really late date, but it's valuable information, and it's enough for us to estimate what it costs. The point is, Tampa is going to be implementing PFAS 2, treatment 2, and deep well. So, their rates are not going to be static, right? So but we can certainly run the numbers at their current rates. That's not an issue.
I've talked to Mayor Castor, and again, this conversation presupposes that they would be agreeable to letting us do that, and I don't think that's the case. Hillsborough County may be, but I don't think Tampa's they're already in the design phases of their.
I would trust what your public works staff met with them and said, and that's something you guys can ask them directly. So I was not there.
But anyway, having those numbers, I think would be beneficial for both us and the public to know.
Not a problem.
It's a lot of money, so we're trying to make sure we have all the.
Understand.
Yeah.
Yes, that's an easy calculation.
Mr. Warrenfelds, anything to? Okay, Mr. Talton, any final words?
I just want to thank you all. The level of depth of questions, I applaud you, because those are things that we struggled with too to develop this plan, and at some point we had to pick a plan to move forward. So we picked the best plan we could, but it is certainly in your court and your staff's court to adjust this plan going forward. A master plan, again, flies at 30,000 feet, then you come down to the level once you had discussions with the regulators, et cetera. So now is the time to shake the bushes and answer these questions on that level, on a more granular level. So, thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Talton. So, council members, I'm going to defer to your wishes on this. I don't think there's any action expected. We're good.
Oh, thank you.
But if you choose and you want to have some discussion on it, we can certainly do that. I mean, we're here. It's an important topic. It's expensive. We can have some discussion if you'd like.
I have one item.
Okay.
I just wanted, as for the exploratory well and the possibility of not having to do that, based on the information that's presented, that would make sense to me. However, they have indicated that it's possible it might be more cost effective to add a well for capacity at Whiteway versus trying to lay pipe to get the water from Sunnydale to Whiteway, because it's already got to go, piping already has to exist to go from Whiteway to Sunnydale, so that might not eliminate the cost of a well, but it might not require it to be a deep well, which would reduce the cost. Yeah. Anyway, that was the only thing
I'd be interested in having a little more on that as well, because if we got to put a pipe from Whiteway to Sunnydale, because you got to have supply, you got to have treated water going to Sunnydale.
Yes.
Seems like if you're going to dig a trench, you're going to put a pipe, you could dig the same trench, put two pipes. But, I mean, I don't know if they're trench or they bore, I'm not sure how that would work, but.
And none of this really had the cost
right
associated with.
That's a good point. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
The only comment I have is, for the last 6 years, Tampa has increased rates to us for their treatment plants and so forth. So whatever calculations you do, that has to be factored in as to what's it going to be, what's the potential. I know just of our sewer rates, they went up 5, 10, 15% every year for handling it, because we ended up having to pay for their improvements, and they're going to pass it on just like that. Plus also the distance. It's 1 mile from here to the city, 3 miles from here to the county, and all that we can encounter in that type of a hookup connection. God knows what's out there in between. So that'd be my word of caution with that.
Yeah, I would agree with you, but I think with a project this big.
Oh, we got to look at it. Absolutely got to look at it. Just so we keep as much of it in the calculation as we can.
We would be doing a disservice to it if we didn't run that down a little bit.
Agreed.
Councilmember Kravitz?
Yeah, I have a question for City Manager. When we got numbers from Hillsborough County and Tampa Bay, Tampa Water, my assumption there was that if they were giving us estimates that they were in principle willing to connect. Was that a bad assumption on my part?
So, to clarify, we approached them a year ago about this issue because we were trying to just look at all the alternatives as was evidenced by the discussion tonight. I don't think this is a priority for the Hillsborough County nor the city of Tampa. My understanding at the staff level, I've not talked to the folks with the city of Tampa. I talked to them initially. I was on a call with our staff. The rest of the conversations since have been at the water staff level, I should say. Our understanding is that the city of Tampa may have some capacity issues where they might not be inclined to do this. I think they explored it as a courtesy to us because that was our request. But they have some capacity issues they're trying to work through because, again, they pull from the river primarily, and they have to meet a certain amount, I think, also from Tampa Bay Water. And if there's a drought or more demand, then they pull more from Tampa Bay Water, which costs them more. So I think they're trying to figure out their own internal capacity and then also deal with their own PFAS issues because they have PFAS as well. And so if council recall, when we did meet with them a year ago, their costs were, well in excess of $100 million that they were looking at for just to address the PFAS issue, including the deep well. So I don't I don't know if the Tampa will be a viable possibility. The county, we would have to look at the county again. Excuse me. The concern that I have with the county alternative is that it's a 3+ mile connection to get to their closest connection point to get us to the Whiteway plant. Our experience, for example, in Fowler Avenue, dealing with underground infrastructure, you think something's going to cost a certain amount, and then you realize, because there could be anything underground that's not accounted for coming from the county into the city, that those costs could exponentially grow very quickly. So if I recall, I think the number might have been an estimate of $40 million, let's say, for the county connection. That number could be much, much larger, again, because we don't know what's underground to make that connection. So I think there's a lot of variables there. It's not to mean that we shouldn't continue to look at it. I just think that the cost will probably end up being more significant than we are contemplating at this moment. Again, if the county would be willing to even consider that at this point.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think going forward, I personally would really like to know whether, just yes or no, from both of these utilities, whether they're willing to connect. I'd also be curious if the connection point that's 3 miles away is toward the east, because we are always talking about annexing areas in the east. So if that is the case, there might be some arbitrage there. And the last point that comes to mind, yes, everyone is raising their utility rates. Tampa will, the county will, we will. However, this estimate that we have in front of us about the 72 million is already 6% higher because we had 6% inflation this year. So I would assume that that is reflected in a higher ongoing cost. And as we move forward over the next few years, these costs will also not age well. The ones that we have in front of us for the do-it-yourself solution. And there's also always a risk in doing construction that you will experience delays and cost overruns. And so when I consider which of these options, if we have three, and we may not, I would think which one has the greatest risk of a significant overrun. So the numbers from Tampa and the county, the provisional ones, were in a very wide range. So I don't, if I got an estimate from like 20 to 35 million or 20 to 40 million, I probably wouldn't take it too seriously. So I'm not assuming that these numbers are going to survive contact with the enemy, but we do need to get the numbers, and we also do need to get a yes or no, in my mind, from all of the people that we're talking to. Even if we have to force the question, right? Sometimes it's a little bit unpleasant, but you have to say, you have to ask for the order, right? Are you willing to connect? Yes or no? And if they say no, then we file that away and we know we can't have that option. So we pursue other options with more energy. But it's important to know. And I think that everyone I speak to wants to know, even if they want to keep it in-house, they want to know what these other options might cost. Nobody wants to do whatever we're going to do and have any regrets that we didn't look at everything and make the best choice. So I think that is something that everyone has in common. Everyone wants to know that whatever we do was the right thing, right? And the only way we can do that is if we have as complete a picture as we get. And again, I'm very concerned about the cost of this project, if we do it in-house, escalating over time, because inflation is real, material crunches are real, the demand for these parts is going to be intense and real as we go forward. I would not assume that the number that we have is the number that we're going to end up with. Even when I'm doing really basic construction, like rehabbing a house, always I plan for 15 to 20% overage, and I've never been disappointed, ever. So that just goes right into my budget from the start. So if we extrapolate something like that for here, right, and already we've had very significant inflation this year. I was reading that in the paper a few days ago. We're talking 5-6% in almost every category. And energy is a big part of construction. Energy is way up. So we are looking at higher numbers than what we have here today. I will guarantee it. So those are my thoughts right now.
Any discussion?
Yes. My thoughts. I certainly can't make a decision tonight. We have a very good report. We've had some great questions, a lot of great discussions. I look forward to the town hall on Tuesday. We'll hear more from the public, but I really appreciate everything the consultants have done, our staff done. You've worked really hard on it. Just my thoughts on the latest issue, and again, we don't have the numbers, and we have to explore everything. But personally, I would love to keep control of our water plant with us in the water plant, not rely on another entity, which our staff and our citizens that are sitting out in the audience now would have to go down to the city of Tampa or Hillsborough County to talk about their water to their houses, so we can control that. But that's just my thought right today. So that's it, Mayor.
Okay, so just to respond briefly, I agree with much of what you said, council member, particularly with the cost overruns. These are already given to us in 2025 numbers. So I agree that the real number, I'm sure, will be significantly higher than 72 million. In terms of getting a firm yes or no, though, from Hillsborough County or Tampa, that sounds easy, and it's not. Because both of those entities, that would take us months to probably, if you're looking for a firm answer, because both of those entities would have to take it to their governing board. It would almost, I'm sure, have to go to the county commission and to Tampa City Council to get final approval. But in addition to that, both of those entities would also have to go to Tampa Bay Water, because they're a customer and a partner to Tampa Bay Water, and we're not. So that would be a third board that would have to go to see if they could re-wholesale as a Tampa Bay Water customer. I'm pretty sure under their, I don't know if it's a charter, their user agreement as a charter member, I don't think they're allowed to do that. It would cause some, that doesn't mean that it couldn't eventually be done. But as terms of like picking up the phone and calling Bonnie Wise or Jane Castor, you're not going to be able to get that. I mean, you could probably get a no, but it would take you a long time to get a yes, because it would have to go through, and if you have any experience with either of those entities, think it takes us a long time to get something done, try dealing with them. And for them to get something worked up to the point of going to their city council or their BOCC would set us back a long time. So we can certainly renew the contract or contacts and try, but it's not like you're going to call Bonnie and get, yeah, we can do that. I mean, it's going to be more than that. So. Okay, very good. Well, that was good discussion. Next, we have funding options for proposed water plant improvements. And Peter Napoli from Stantec, he's the senior manager for Stantec, is here to present.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just before Mr. Napoli comes up, I just want to preface his presentation.
Okay.
So Mr. Napoli with Stantec was commissioned to look at a bond feasibility study, revenue feasibility for a potential bond. So what he did, and you're going to see, is basically he looked as if we were bonding the full 72.5 for $72.2 million that's presented in the master plan report. I want to make clear that there are alternatives of which Mr. Talton talked about through like the state drinking water revolving loan fund. There may be appropriations. In fact, I have a meeting set up with officials from DEP, Tallahassee DEP, and our government affairs consultant. He helped set this up. We're going to have these conversations about that process because that only really starts up in July, for example, the application cycle, and it would go into next year's session as well for some of that. So that first year, there could be some other things here that we could find out about, apply for. We may get by year 2 some dollars that offset the full amount that's listed here. But I just wanted you to know what he was charged with was looking at, take the full amount, and if we had to bond it, what would it look like? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. Welcome, Mr. Napoli.
Thank you. Thank you, City Manager, for that
I
introduction.
don't have a monitor.
Go ahead.
Brian, we've got a monitor that's failed. Okay, you can continue. He'll
Go
he'll
ahead, I'll
work.
catch up.
All right. Well, thank you for having me here today. Good evening. Peter Napoli, Stantec Consulting. As the city manager was explaining, we were tasked with, taking all these variables and assumptions that were just discussed and inputting it into a rate plan, a 10-year sustainability outlook for the water and sewer utility. So I've got a brief presentation for you tonight. We're only covering a couple of these scenarios, but it was an expedited process just to get here. We just wanted to get the discussion started. So we are definitely going to come back with more scenarios after this. Some of the things that the city manager was explaining that could affect the cost side in a positive manner, so funding from other sources, those weren't factored in. And then on the side that the council member Kravitz just discussed, where costs could be higher than they're initially expecting, we haven't contemplated that yet. We're just taking the $72.5 million number from the engineer consultant's report and then running with that for now, and we can kind of work with things as they become available. So just a little background on the rate study. Typical, rate study revenue sufficiency analysis. The goal is just to look at the operating revenues, the water, sewer, reclaimed rate revenues that are generated. There's some other operating revenues that your utility generates from other miscellaneous fees. Look at that on an annual basis. Look at the operating expenses as they currently stand in the budget. Look at the capital outlay and then the capital concerns in the future, and basically give the city a recommendation on whether or not your rate revenues are sufficient currently or they need to be increased through rate increase adoption. So the big part about this is that middle section. The borrowing is a huge topic of focus in this study. So we have the data, the cost data from the water treatment renewal plan in the study, and we reflect that. The cost requirement side, outside of that, there are operating cost requirements for the water and sewer utility currently, and we did our best to project those going forward for the next 10 years based on the last several years of historical trends. So things like personnel services, so salaries and benefits, retirement costs, health insurance, your fuel costs, chemicals, repair and maintenance, all those operating budget line items, we have those moving forward year after year too, to give you an idea of how your operating expenses are increasing. And then lastly, I just wanted to point out the renewal and replacement projects, the other projects that are on the CIP for the water and sewer utility to keep up with all the other demands and needs. We have those in there, and we have the continual funding of that R&R fund, which is, it's kind of separate. It's held separately from the water and sewer utility fund, but we have that continual funding contemplated as well. So the key drivers for the rate increases that we're going to discuss today, obviously the capital project funding. So the water treatment renewal plan over that 5-year time frame, the total cost being $72.5 million. The middle section there, the financial sustainability. So one of the key metrics or performance indicators when we're talking about debt like this and issuing new debt for a water and sewer utility is the coverage. So these bonds, they're potential bonds, hypothetical bonds at this point that could be issued for this project. They're backed by the water and sewer rate revenues. So the agencies will want to ensure, and the banks will want to ensure, that those water and sewer rate revenues are sufficient to cover that debt service on an ongoing basis. So there's a coverage requirement. So essentially your net income for your water and sewer utility after you take your operating revenues minus your operating expenses has to at least be 1.2 times. If it was anywhere lower than that, they probably just wouldn't issue the debt to the city. But we would really like it to be more like 1.5 times. So that's why we highlighted it there. That's more of a target. That's going to get you better interest rates and a better credit rating from the agencies. So that's what we're using right now kind of as our minimum, that 1.5 times target. And then on the other side of the equation is fund balance is important for the rating agencies and important for the bond issuance. You want to be sure that you're maintaining at least 3 months, which is 25% of your annual operating expenditures in that water and sewer utility over that 10-year time frame. And then the key driver on the cost side, like I was discussing, the blended cost rate is about 4.2% average assumed annual increases across the board for your operating expenses. We have that built into the financial forecast. One more slide here on just reviewing the high-level assumptions. So we worked quickly with the city budget staff and city management to get your 2025 financials in here. So what that tells us is your current starting point from a fund balance standpoint for your water and sewer utility. How much money do you have in the bank after all of your liabilities are paid for? We have your current year 2026 budgeted revenues and expenses, and it's probably an amended budget, like a more recent version of that budget. We don't have the 2027 budget in at this time. I think it's preliminary in nature and where it's a work in progress. So as soon as that becomes available, that's going to be loaded into the analysis. The operating capital cost escalation. So we do have inflation built in for the other capital projects out there in the forecast. We have the annual renewal and replacement CIP. And then if we go down to the bottom, just at a high level estimate. So 30 years at 4.5%, we're looking at a new debt service of about $4.5 million. That assumes proceeds of $68 million because I saw that there is a fund balance in your water impact fee fund. And we're predicting there's going to be about $4 million available out of that water impact fee fund to go towards this project. And I think that it's an eligible project because there is a capacity expansion component of all these upgrades. I think with the additional line going in for the other 16-inch pipe. So whether or not the city council wants to pledge that impact fee funds towards the project, we could take that out and recalculate the numbers. It'll be more like 4.7 million for annual debt service, but I just wanted to review that so you guys don't get confused when you see that $68 million of debt issuance. That's just the impact fees bridging that gap. And then I just wanted to show here, this is the same schedule that the consulting engineer just showed the city council. I just wanted to highlight that first year because it's important for one of the scenarios that we ran. For the city, the first year of total spending is around $8 million on these projects. So that's this next upcoming fiscal year. And the total is, of course, 72.5. Okay, so this is a screenshot from the dashboard of our financial model. It can be a little intimidating at first. There's a lot going on. So I'm just gonna walk you through from the top to the bottom. It's a 10-year forecast, so that first row there is all the fiscal years that are included in the forecast. We're starting in fiscal year 2026, and it goes all the way out to 2036. The very next line is the assumed rate increases for the water and sewer rates. This is across the board. It would be for both the fixed and volumetric rates for water, sewer, reclaimed on your current rate schedule. 2026, the most recent year, you adopted a 5% rate increase. So that's that first number you see. And then going forward, that's our current scenario that we have in the financial model. So in this scenario, we have a 15% rate increase in 2027, a 10% increase in 28, and then 3% increases thereafter. The next row is the senior lien debt service coverage. So this is where the model is calculating the debt service coverage as a metric for the utilities revenues against the debt service payment. There's a couple years that are highlighted there in yellow because you're getting a little close to that 1.5, or you're slightly below that 1.5. Speaking with the FA, it's not really a cause for concern. It'd be a cause for concern if it was levels away from that 1.5, but that's kind of within a margin of error. The next row is the total residential bill. So this is where we do an average residential bill, just water and sewer only at 4,000 gallons of usage. So the average customer at 4,000 gallons of usage currently pays about $75 a month. That you'll see that $74.63 in the first year. With a 15% increase, that would be an $11 increase monthly to $85 a month. And then the 10% increase would be about $850 to about $95 a month, and then those 3% increases are about $3 a month. So the three charts at the bottom, the chart off to the left-hand side is the operating fund balance. This is where we're tracking the savings account for the water and sewer utility over that 10-year time frame, and we don't want to show a forecast where those blue bars are falling below that black line. That black line is the 25% target or minimum policy for the reserve balance. The middle line there shows it's just purely informational, shows the revenues in the black tracking with the expenses in the orange, and then your operating expenses at the bottom there in the dashed blue line. So the difference between that dashed blue line and the orange is the debt service and then the cash funded capital that's coming out of the utility fund. And then off to the right, you can see the funding for this water treatment renewal plan. You're basically issuing all the money up front next year in 2027. So you'd get the $70 or $68 million in proceeds and start paying that debt service. We did, working with the FA, we did contemplate or assume 2 years of interest only to try to take a little pressure off of the rates in the beginning under this conventional debt issuance scenario. So there is 2 years of interest only. Interest only is around $3.3 million in those 2 years, so it's still a lot of pressure up front. But after those 2 years of interest only and those rate increases catch up, you get your revenue to a level where you can adequately cover that debt service on an ongoing basis for the 30 years and then maintain the fund balance. So this next scenario is where you don't issue the bonds next year. Instead, you kind of punt on it for 1 year and take out a line of credit, which the FA said is an option to the city to consider, with basically a revolving fund. You get approved for max limit. Say that max limit is $8 million, the amount needed to start the projects as part of that timing schedule. So the city just pays interest on that in that first year. The interest is slightly higher. We're estimating around 5.5%. So you take out $8 million, or you pay for the initial stages of the project with the $8 million line of credit in fiscal year 2027. You make about a $450,000 interest payment in that year, and then in 2028, you wrap that line of credit off, or you pay it off with the issuance of a bond for the same amount as what was being issued before in the first year. So I hope that's not too confusing, but essentially it's buying you another year where you pay interest only, relieving pressure on rates. So under this scenario, at the top part of the page here, we have 3 years of 10% rate increases rather than that 15% and then a 10%. So in total, it adds up to more, right? It's 30% versus the other scenario is over the 3-year period 28%, so slightly more. Just because you're not getting that revenue sooner, the 15% generates more sooner, and there's a cumulative effect of generating more money sooner than kind of delaying it and pushing it out. But it does, all the coverage looks really great under this scenario. you have more level increases, 10% a year for 3 years rather than that 15% spike and then a 10%. The average impact to the monthly bill is around $7 a month, $7.50 a month in that first year, and then $8.20 in the second year. And then there is, if you look on the fund balance chart, there looks to be a little bit of a building of fund balance in the latter 5 years of the projection period. I think that's important to point out because there's a definite lack of major CIP projects currently. We don't have a 10-year plan, we just got that 5-year plan. So if there's anything that could occur in that latter 5 years of the 10-year projection, major capital projects that the city will need cash to dedicate to, it's pretty important to have some fund balance built up for that purpose. So this is the only other scenario we generated for the city at this time. I know there's a lot of variables flying around right now of, different funding sources. It's another thing to point out. If you just take out this line of credit next year, gives you time to figure out, are there other funding sources available? Are there grants? Are there lower cost debt options like, SRF, et cetera? So it kind of buys the city a little bit more time to go that route. But it's definitely, it's a policy decision. It's up to the city council where to take this. At this point, it's just, we're workshopping it. There's no decisions that are made on the rates at this point. That happens later on in the year, but there will have to be a decision made in terms of the rate increase for next year, especially if the city is planning on issuing the debt conventionally next year. The rating agencies and the financial advisor and the banks are going to want to see that the city has a commitment to raising the revenue to an adequate level to meet those debt service coverage targets. So the next chart here just summarizes the scenarios, those 3 scenarios, and really just that next year of a rate impact. So off to the left here we have Temple Terrace's current water and wastewater bill in total for that average 4,000 gallon usage. Then in the middle there you can see Temple Terrace with a 10% rate increase. So that black line is the average across all of these utilities that we surveyed. So under the 10% scenario, 10% rate increase scenario, you're still falling below the average. And then even under the 15% rate increase scenario, you're about right at the average when compared to these entities. And they're mostly regional. We tried to get you a good, survey base here of other local water and sewer utility providers. And then just one last slide, and I think the engineer and consultant also mentioned this. No one's rates in the area are static right now, so it's when you look at these surveys and look at the different scenarios of rate increases for Temple Terrace, these other entities on this chart are most likely also contemplating rate increases for next year. We just don't know them yet. It's not public record yet. As that becomes available, we'll incorporate it, but there's rate increases all across the state, especially when dealing with the upgrades necessary to address the PFAS issue. So I've just grabbed a couple of headlines. Their St. Pete is raising about 9% a year. Apopka is increasing about 16% in the first year and then 9% after. Hernando County just voted to adopt a 5-year rate plan. And then Pasco is also increasing their rates, but there's just a few. There's many other rate increases that are being adopted around the state. So to summarize and conclude the scenarios that I've brought before you today, scenario 1 is just conventional debt issuance next year in fiscal year 2027 in order to meet the coverage targets and the fund balance targets. Under that scenario, we're recommending a 15% rate increase in 27, followed by a 10% rate increase in 28, and then more nominal increases thereafter. In scenario 2, the city would utilize a line of credit to fund the beginning stages of the project next year, and then in 28 look at issuing conventional debt, conventional borrowing. Under that scenario, we'd recommend a rate increase of 10% for the next 3 years. Residential bills, even under those two scenarios, remain favorable when compared to local utilities. And of course, as things change and, inflation numbers come out and maybe the construction costs get revised, we recommend that the city continue to evaluate this on an annual basis. If there's any other funding sources, maybe these rate increases can come down and it can offset the impact on ratepayers. But at this time, this is the best information we can give you. So, thank you. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Napoli. Are there members of the public who wish to comment? I think everybody's run out of gas.
Yes.
Council members, question. I started this in last time. I'll start this in this time. Councilmember Kravitz?
Great presentation. Thank you very much. This is really, really good, really thorough. I really appreciate it, and thank you for the care you put into it and all the detail. There were one or two things I didn't understand. One was the operating fund numbers that I saw in the two respective slides, and I was just wondering, it looked like the operating fund was really significantly higher, like crossing over the $15 million mark at one point. I think it was 2035. Why would it go that high? And also, why is there such a stark difference between the LOC model and the bond-only model?
Yeah, maybe we could calibrate that in a little bit more. But just for example, I have a model, and I looked at 9% over the 3 years, and as soon as you go down to 9%, you see the yellow flash across the board for that debt service coverage. So the way the model works, what's really driving these rate increases more so than having a certain amount of money in the bank is having a certain amount of revenue to cover the debt service coverage. So it's a debt service coverage trigger more than a fund balance trigger. And that's why you're seeing the fund balance kind of raise a little bit. We're not raising the rates because we need more fund balance. It's because you need more revenue to cover that annual debt service amount under both scenarios. So that's, I think, the best explanation there. But there is excess fund balance out there, and then if you look at the coverage, there's a little excess coverage too. You're getting above that 1.5. Under that situation, this is just a projection. We're not saying that you adopt this 10-year rate plan and stick with it. You wouldn't continue to just add money to the bank account. You'd probably reevaluate and lower those rate increases out in the future. I'd say the most important rate increases to focus on for now are the first 3 to 4 years time frame to just get the revenue up. It's kind of a shot in the arm to get the revenue up to a level where you can now bring on $4.5 million of debt that the city didn't have previously.
Got it. So am I understanding it correctly? We have to bring in a certain amount of minimum revenue. That's part of the bond term.
Exactly.
So as a result of that, we are accumulating a fund balance. Is there a way that we could maybe negotiate prepayment options into the loan so that as the fund balance builds, it triggers and then the repayment gets made, and then over time that'll lower the rate increases?
Yeah, if you had excess fund balance, then you could then reallocate to pay off principal. I'm sure that that's something that you could, that's getting out of my area of expertise. I would definitely advise the city consult the FA, on the financial advisor on that. But that's certainly a use of fund balance, a good use of fund balance.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. That's all I got. Thank you.
Councilmember?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. How would the commitment, this is a funky question, so bear with me for a second. And I just compounded the complexity with the increasing fund balances. Would the change of the with changes in our outside funding sources, we come across a grant, we come across something else, we would come in and 2-3 years from now reduce it. Would that change the type of commitment we would have to make with the lenders in order so that we could reduce this the annual increase? Because you figure for scenario 2, you have 30% increase, basically 30% cumulatively over the first 3 years, the 3%, whereas the other was 25% essentially over the first 2 years, and then 3% thereafter. That's why your fund balance is growing so dramatically towards the end. Is there anything that we're going to have to give to a lender or the underwriters of the bonds to allow them to do this, or to allow them to reduce the overall rates? Because we're going to have to make a commitment here that we're going to do X, Y, Z, and then all of a sudden we get $5 million that we can throw at this thing. Okay, are we going to have to come back and continually change the commitments that we're making, or is that something that you don't know at this point?
I think the way it works is that when the council finally decides on the approach you want to take, and and you give direction to city management, move forward, we want to issue debt next year in the amount of $68 million. We start working on what's called the bond feasibility report, which goes in with this issuance that basically says, this is the city's plan for revenues over the next 3 years. This is the plan. This is what it looks like over a 10-year period with their debt service coverage. They are stable, utility. They're basically worth investing money in. If anything changes after that, I'm not sure how it works after that bond report is issued, and I believe that there's probably stipulations with the bank on how soon you can pay off principal. Like, you probably can't pay it off next year if we just got $10 million in a grant. So I really, its timing is an important thing, and that's why I like the line of credit option, because it kind of buys the city an additional year to do more fact finding with these funding sources, and maybe there's other ways to reduce that principal that you have to issue, and to any amount that you can reduce that annual debt service payment, you reduce the pressure on ratepayers and the rate increases that are necessary.
I would agree with that. The first year is the line of credit, and then do the wraparound to absorb that. I know I've done industrial revenue bonds, and it's, oh my God, it's a nightmare. And I only did $6 million, not 73 million. I think that's all I have right now. But if there's good information, thank you, appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yes, Mr. B.
So I appreciate Mr. Napoli taking a stab at answering these questions, but they're outside it. Like he admitted, it's a little bit outside his wheelhouse. He's the rate expert. We do have a financial advisor. We also have a bond counsel that you've all met before. So what I will do with Mr. Ingram is we're making notes of all the questions that are coming up, and we will be consulting with a financial advisor and bond counsel trying to get some of these answers. I know with the general obligation bond, the prepayment within the first 10 years was not really a feasible item from what Mr. Rowe explained to us, and Mr. Draper as well. But we'll ask the same question in terms of a revenue bond if the same stipulations apply, and we'll get all that information back to you.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
No questions.
Councilmember Fernandez?
I have a couple of things. One, I just want to start off for anybody watching or who will watch. This is different from a general obligation bond because we are discussing funding in an enterprise fund. And an enterprise fund in a governmental entity means that all operating expenses, capital renewal replacement, projects, et cetera, all have to be paid by the specific fees established and charged to the customers or the end users. So I just to clarify, but that's different. And then I did want to answer the question about the fund balance and why it might be showing such an increase as years go by. And I think that has to do more with not having capital improvement dollars allocated into those future years that would be using fund balance. So it looks like the fund balance is very high, but theoretically there should be capital improvement projects included in that estimate, and that would, if it was, then that fund balance would be lower based on that revenue. But that's what I think is why. But anyway, I want to ask about, because we're talking about a full renewal, replacement, overhaul, complete overhaul of the water treatment system. and we have a 5-year capital plan for specifically renewal, replacement, and capital items. Are any of the capital items that we were looking at funding in the next 5 years actually going to be taken care of under this all-encompassing project?
So when the finance director and myself met with Mr. Napoli, we reviewed the capital projects. We did remove or strike out a few of those items that duplicated their effort. So as the previous question was asked, pretty much a similar fashion, we have to go back through the capital item and the capital list, and we will pull out a few of those items that are duplicates that are in the 5-year schedule. There are not a lot of those. But keep in mind that 5-year capital is not just only the water plant. That is the entire distribution system and the wastewater collection system. So there's a lot of projects on that list.
Okay, so that was one of the things I wanted to clarify. And then the rate estimate assumptions, when you calculated this, did you take into account, because if we do this project, we will have a new water treatment facility, which might not need the same level of renewal, replacement, repairs as a 40-year-old. So how did you assume capital projects, and I know it encompasses the full, but how did you assume that the cost of capital projects going forward to establish a rate?
We took the 5-year CIP, and we didn't assume any increase of efficiencies or reductions in annual operating costs related to the new water treatment plant. So if those numbers are available, we could work them in to the forecast. If there's estimates of how, the renewal and replacement the city might see savings on some of those items related to the new plant, we can work that into the forecast. But it's kind of a status quo assumption of from that standpoint. We have the 5-year forecast, and then we took average amounts for renewal and replacement going forward based on that 5 years. Average for renewal and replacement, and then average for the water utility, like the water and sewer utility fund, because they fund a few projects as well that there's two separate funds. There's the renewal and replacement fund, and then the operating fund.
So then that leads me to my next question, and that is, we have been told, based on the report that we just discussed, that into the future our operating costs might be more expensive than they are now, just because of the nanofiltration technology or whatever technology might be put in place. Was that, did you use existing operating expense to estimate these rates, or did you incorporate in the anticipated expense or increase in operations?
I'm glad you brought that up, because we're using the current operations expenses. We didn't know about the potential additional operating expenses in the future. I assume those wouldn't take place until after the water treatment plant is up and operational, so 2031, 2032. So that could potentially impact those projected rate increases out there, but not in the order of magnitude that you're seeing for this debt service coverage. I think more like, instead of 3% out there, you'd probably see 4% or 5%, similar to that ongoing kind of cost escalation increase that the city's used to for rates, just because if all else remains equal, if you're not doing this huge project, costs still increase year over year, chemicals, fuel, salaries, etc. So next time I come before you, I'll have that operating cost factored into the long-term projection in those outer years, and you might not see those 3% next time. It's more like 4 or 5%.
Okay, then my last question really is about what happens if so we looked at the total of the 72 million, but I think anybody here can practically expect that construction doesn't ever come in at what you estimate. I mean, what would need to happen with our rates? And I'm talking about process. So let's say we've agreed to the project, we started with the line of credit, so we know what our initial rate increases would need to be. But then let's say the project comes in at an end total of 95 million. Is this something that the city is going to undertake each year to calculate, because we would then know our debt service? So then we would basically, it would just be among the city's duty to calculate it, or will it be somebody from outside the city coming in and actually doing a review saying, here's what your rates need to be?
Well, we'd be happy to help the city with that, of course. And I think under this scenario, if next year, say, do the line of credit scenario, we get an updated construction cost estimate next year, the project is now $90 million instead of 72, and then that before the debt was issued and before, you've undertook those proceedings, we would have to update these assumptions. There would be a rate impact on that, and we'd have to calibrate the model to show, okay, now under this $90 million scenario, these are what the rates need to be in order to meet these debt service coverage targets. And as long as that happens before, the debt is issued, I don't really know what would happen after the debt is issued and then the construction costs go up. I guess you'd have to issue additional debt in a separate borrowing, but let's just say next year we come back and the amount that's needed is much higher, we would update these rate increases so that we'd be required to give a sustainable plan to the bank in accordance with that debt issuance, that these are the city's projected utility rate revenues and they're sufficient to cover that debt service over the long-term period.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Napoli. I only have two questions, one for you and one for Mr. Bahia. First one for you, can you put scenario 2 slide back up? Brian, can we get that? Scenario 2, there we go. This is the one that presupposes a line of credit for the first year. So this is getting a little ahead of where we are now. We haven't even decided to do this, much less how to pay for it. But since you're here, and I don't know what the council, when we get to that, I don't know what we'll ultimately say, but this is what's on my mind when I see this. I will likely ask when we get to making a real decision on this, what we can do to even lessen the initial impact, if there's a possibility to lessen that even more and maybe go a 2-year line of credit, or even up to a 36-month line of credit. I'm not a finance guy, but what I'm getting at is this: I am very cognizant that there are people in our city that are feeling the pinch. And remember, our water service area goes outside the city too, so it's not just our residents, it's people in our service area. It's easy to say, well, it's only $7 or $8 a month, but it's really not, because they're paying $4 a gallon for gas all of a sudden, right? They're paying more every time they go to Publix. They're paying more for their insurance. They're paying more for, so it's not just. I mean, we're famous for that, not we, but people are famous for saying, well, it's only $5 a month, but it's really not only $5, because it's $5 here and $12 here and $10 here, and it's cumulative on people. And so the point I'm trying to make is I don't want to finance a car for 10 years, right? I wouldn't do that, because you got a piece of junk car and you're still paying interest. But I would be willing to maybe not get the best debt terms in order to smooth this out for the ratepayers. I am concerned that there are a lot of people in our service area that are struggling, and they are at or below poverty level. They're not living on the golf course. These are people living in the apartments, and so anyway, that's a future question probably, but
Yeah, I can't say anything now, but I'll definitely work with the financial advisor to see if there's any more
Well,
flexibility.
don't do too much, because that's just my opinion talking to you. It's
Sure.
not the council's direction, so. My second question, Mr. B, and I don't know if you'll have the answer to this. We're throwing a lot of stuff at the wall tonight, so I don't expect you to have every answer, but when and if it comes time to do this, this is a huge undertaking. I mean, a years-long construction project that just revolves from one thing to the next. We can't take our eye off the ball for all the other stuff we have going on with storm drains and wastewater and water main replacements and sidewalks and, I mean, Public Works and Utilities has a ton of stuff going on right now. Well, everybody does. All the departments are really working double time right now. How are we going to manage a construction job that's multiple years and is so detailed and technical? I mean, because I don't see any construction, like we hired an owner's agent or anything. I don't see any money in there for that. So what are we going to do?
That is a good question. I had the same thought as we were going through it this evening. So we're going to have to, first of all, let me thank the Public Works Utilities folks, if I could. It took a lot to get to this point, a lot of work, and I appreciate the consultants' work, and both Mr. Napoli, Mr. Telton, and CHA, and everybody. But I got to thank our team first, because they did a lot to get here. So I thank them for that. And there is a lot of work, as you've recognized, going forward. So we're gonna have to have a conversation about that. And there may be, again, I'm just reacting to your question at this point. It may be that we have to account for some sort of construction manager as part of the overall package, to have somebody dedicated to just pursuing this project and the scale of this project going forward. But it's still premature to get there. But we'll talk about that as we move along.
Mr. Napoli, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yep.
Mr. Talton, thank you very much also for your work, and obviously more to come on this. So, council, is there any new business or are there board reports? Councilmember Kravitz.
On the previous topic, if I may.
Sure.
Strongly in favor of getting a construction manager. I think that also, just for the sake of assigning responsibility to one person so that it's clear who's accountable, that's really critical. And we should think about how to structure that contract, because if things don't work out well and we run into issues, we might need someone else. So it should be clear from the onset when we're hiring that person, I think, that it is for the execution of this project. It's not a permanent position, although it could become one, possibly. But that is a very good idea, and I think that would be great. And just on the other point, I want to be a little hesitant about pushing too much of the pain into the future for this loan, because a lot of the time when that kind of thing happens, it's younger people who end up paying the burden. If we preserve the rates for 3 or 4 years or 5 years or whatever it may be, all of that pain will be distributed toward the back end. So that's people who are coming into Temple Terrace later, who are mostly younger people, and people are just going to feel the pain later on, and it'll be more pain than it could have been otherwise. So I agree about maybe having an intermediate period in the beginning, because we won't need the full amount of money to start with anyway. It doesn't make sense to carry that debt service if we're not using the money for the project. But to try and preserve rates for an indefinite period of time, or even longer than it's strictly necessary, I'm very skeptical of that. I think we should start paying back the loan when we can. We should try to make sure that the rates go up. And I've seen this happen before. This year, for example, we all voted to take $500,000 out of a different funding source in order to keep utility rates lower. And as we see, we're up against bigger problems than that. So I'm not a huge fan of subsidizing the utility rates. I don't think it's the right thing to do, because it doesn't convey honesty about what the system costs to the people who are using it. And I think that's really important, that we make it transparent so that everyone can see what the rate is that they're paying. And it doesn't mean that people 3 or 4 years from now are going to end up paying more for their water, so that people in the next 2 or 3 years could pay less. So I think spreading that pain out equally over the 30-year term of that loan, that's the whole point of bonding it out. So that's my thought on that. That's all I got.
Did not mean to curtail discussion. I was just trying to get us out of here. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, and I'll try to get us out of here too, but I want to know what's the next step. I mean, we're going to have a town hall and then a period of time for our staff to work on some things and the consultants on some questions. And then are we going to have maybe a workshop on that or go right into a council meeting? We don't have to answer that tonight. It's just, I would like to kind of know what the plan's going to be.
So there were a lot of moving parts here. You know me, typically I like to give you some pretty precise timeframes, and I'm not able to right now. What I can tell you is definitely next week on Tuesday at 6 o'clock in Lightfoot, we'll be doing the town hall. We're going to refine some of the presentations based on the input that we've gathered here tonight. Mr. Lapley will be there again, Mr. Talton and his team, and so we'll go through what we presented, get the public's input as well. I will be coming back to you at some point, whether it's a workshop or as part of a council agenda. I don't have that well defined just yet, but there will be an action that I will probably need to get direction, because we are putting together the budget for next year. So if we're going to be doing things like lines of credit and things like that, that I'm going to need some direction. At the outside, at the very outside, it would be, obviously, we'd be talking about it at our July 6th budget workshop. But I think I'd like to get that direction prior to that. It's just, again, there's not a whole lot of time. If you look at the calendar right now, things are getting kind of squeezed. But once we get a better handle on this, obviously we'll let the council know immediately.
I have an item.
Member Fernandez.
So my question or request, I mean, I'd really like to have a well-delineated pros and cons. I'm very clear with the recommendation that if we move forward with a full renewal of our water treatment system, that it would be the nanofiltration technology. But I think we need a very, I wouldn't say very precise, but a more precise layout of the full cost of execution of that. And then the full cost, and I know we can't get a yes or no from the city of Tampa or Hillsborough County about connecting to their systems, and I'm not saying that I want us to look at the three scenarios. I do think that we could get an answer from Hillsborough County or city of Tampa. I mean, do they even have the capacity to connect to us without some sort of Tampa Bay Water Agreement or SwiftMud or you know, I think that they would be able to say that. And if they say absolutely not, we don't have any capacity to do that, then we know that that possibility is just not but if they say, well, we don't know, we might have the capacity, then I think we need to look at that scenario, the full cost of what it would be, our best estimate to connect. And if today's water rates are $4 per 1,000 gallons, we know that that's not what that water rate would be, because we know that they're looking at a $100 million investment in their water treatment. So we know that rate would be passed on. I mean, so yes, we might be having to make a lot of assumptions and some extrapolation, but I'd like to see those, again, if they say, we don't know, we might have some capacity, the three scenarios a little more fleshed out so that we can, and I'm not necessarily asking for this to be done at the town hall meeting, but for me to make a decision, I need to have that information. So that's my request.
Other discussion?
Yeah, if I may, to your point, Councilman Fernandez, yeah, we need to, they'll be able to say that we had this issue, and that could become part of our decision tree. I agree with the mayor. They're not going to be able to give us a yes or no at this point, but they'll be able to say, if I can get this, and this, then it's something we can possibly do. I think that'll be probably the best information that we could potentially guess in order for us to make a decision. But I agree.
Okay, very good. Now, is there any new business or other board reports, council?
We
Nobody.
don't have old business anymore on the.
I'm sorry?
Oh, did we not have an old business
We didn't.
item previously at one point, or is that missing from this agenda?
We did. Doesn't seem to be one there. Did you have any old business,
We
Councilman?
have 2 items of old business.
Okay, council member.
Thank you. What, in any case, sorry, to the city manager, 2 questions. Joel Brown, Tico, anything happened there?
So I did have conversations with Mr. Brown. I apologize, I don't have the synopsis right in front of me, but I will provide it to the city council this week in your update.
Second one was Sunnyside Road, that community meeting, is that, is there a status update on that? The traffic calming project?
Mr. Warrenfeld, are you prepared to answer that? We'll get back to you on that as well as to the status.
That's all I got, thank you. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Any other old business, new business, board reports? Okay, city manager's report.
I do not have anything.
City attorney's report.
Nothing tonight.
Council, any questions for Mr. Bahia or Mr. Ernie? Mr. Mueller? If there are no questions for the city manager or city attorney and nothing more to come before the council, we will stand adjourned.